No, he's on. Georgia. Okay. Not that Marcus will wear his, but I will give him one.
No.
Survive? It's pretty good. Yeah, I thought it went pretty well. Yeah.
Barry, do you need this?
So I don't know what was going on with the rest. I mean, our little area was fine.
I just, if it was important, I didn't want to miss it.
Well, there's not many people there, so that has a lot to do with it. So. I feel like it's. I mean, it's like half the kids and then half of the hat, it's like half are gone and then you only have half there at a time. So it's, yeah.
How was your group?
Mine's good. I've got all like AD and pre-AP, so you know. And
So you're gonna be able to have a lot of fun.
and of the 9 that I had, I've taught 4 of them before.
Oh.
So
I walked past your room a couple times.
yeah, we're down in the gym. So yeah, it was good. All right. Oh. There.
So I'll do my best.
Hey.
I don't know.
You try. So I was telling Chuck that a couple of them said it was their favorite birthday because it was different and they did just have to listen to little syllabus and kind of more flexible.
I heard it was very cool.
From Crystal.
Yeah,
Hello,
I don't
good
know.
evening.
Hello, how are you?
Just fine, how are you?
I don't think we get rid of the cluster, but that I think was probably especially. Yeah, and like they doubled the lines up and the first people, their kids didn't come out for class, so, you know, by definition. So, yeah, but I mean, I don't know, if we have our lunch delivered to us, so I don't know.
It's just not in the way then.
So Diana's not tricking me. Hey,
Crystal, how are you?
I'm good, how are you? Yeah, things went well. Yeah, I thought I sort of thought like, I was like, man, they're seeing profiles and they kept getting closer to like something. So, yeah, I'm a little busy. So I don't know. Yeah, no, well, I'm lucky, I've got a really good like, and of the 9 of them, I taught 5 of them before, so that means you already established a relationship. So, yeah, that's your group. So that's like so we're like we're like the go-to if you have an AP or so we're kind of spearheading it.
Everybody knows it. It's kind of fun, but
So yeah, we're getting a little worried, but we're
done.
so it was nice today to kind of like have somebody to do it with, you know, like maybe take a break for a little bit or so yeah, and then the people who don't have a partner have like somebody here to come check
What's
with them.
that? Is that then?
It's been nothing.
How are you?
Big Pittsburgh Steelers, I grew up in Pittsburgh.
He's a Steelers.
Yeah.
She got to be in my school today.
Yeah, I was living high school today. Yesterday, we were in middle school.
Hey, how are you?
Smooth, because they don't have,
Yeah.
day school buses.
Just working out that.
Yeah, he was in the Navy also, and he just
Either they drive or they.
franchise
Yep, guys, how are you? Well, that felt like a complete.
Doing well, yeah. Tired obviously, but you know, I mean, not as tired as maybe I used to, but I just haven't gone.
So yeah, we got them there, they didn't have any plans, so they did.
Yeah.
How are you tonight?
Well, yeah, the 4.5 weeks before whatever we were in August, like that has been like gone.
So how about yourself?
Doing good, thank you.
You have to do anything in Canvas.
There were players that lived in like the kids went to school.
Yeah, we do.
Jason, how are you?
Doing well.
Good, thank you.
You're right there. I'm here? Yes. Oh, okay. There was a large purse here, so I was very confused.
Their pay at the time,
You're in your social
they
distance.
were like
And
sponge,
then after
but
since then, I was like, okay.
We have to use white then.
So yeah, and when I had asked her to transfer.
Kirby?
How are you?
Good. How about you?
Good, looks like everybody got off good here,
I
man.
was like,
You
oh.
did?
like sort of the contrast and all
Yeah, no,
that.
that makes sense.
And
It's gonna be even better. I got 20 meg service installed today, so that doesn't seem like a lot to some people, but.
I don't understand it.
3 meg, so going from 3 to 20 is.
I don't understand it, so. Just as long as
How
I
are
can
you?
plug it up and it works, life's good. That's,
Oh, thank you.
How's it going, Mr. Connor? Good, you all right? Good.
I thought you might like
Have a good week. Yeah,
right.
they're all good weeks. I agree.
Hey, Georgia, how are you?
Inhale and exhale. That's exactly right. You know?
I really, I didn't know how I was gonna like them, like, they're really good.
how are you, George?
Hey, Georgia.
Matt said, he's like, you have to watch his long TV.
Oh, no, my husband's years away. I'm like, oh, please, you gotta do something like that.
Yeah, that one is pretty.
And they're really, like,
Well, no. I have a math problem, I have to stop buying, like, on YouTube, on any kids' reading turkey one, I'm like, I already have 2, I don't know what I need.
I went to school at Barron. I'm doing sports medicine.
Oh, I do, I have done that.
If we were to know how handy
But
that would
I
come
don't
as a parent.
Right.
Brought home before I came here.
Oh my goodness, I love seeing your pics on your Facebook page of them. It seems like every time I turn around, they look bigger, taller, but I love your lamp post.
Yeah, it's shrinking.
That's neat, I like that. That's really cool. It's cool watching them grow like that.
Okay. But Sam and Naomi's picture did too, where they stand by the sign at the restaurant.
Oh.
How are you?
I love the cup.
Thank you.
Kind of almost makes me feel like I'm on vacation.
Huh?
Almost makes me feel like I'm on vacation.
Yeah. I'm having dreams.
I mean, it feels like Outer Banks weather out there today.
If you search me.
It's supposed to be beautiful next week.
Beautiful as in,
The highest all week is gonna be like the upper 80s. Or mid-80s.
okay. That's nice. I just dread when it starts getting cooler and, you know, winter's coming.
thank you.
We're going down for our anniversary. Our anniversary Saturday.
Aww.
Go every year for our anniversary.
You guys have a good time.
Thanks, all right.
How many years?
22.
Maggie is coming, so I might just.
I got you.
How many?
I've got you. 37.
Wow.
I was telling them.
How about you, Marcus? How long you been
They
married?
said
23 in December.
they liked it better than.
You got me by a year. How about you, Dr. Hicks?
What, married?
Uh-huh.
51 years, last
Wow.
week.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
How long have you been married, Dr. Shook?
25.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's cool.
We were supposed to go to Hawaii in June.
Yeah, you told.
51.
So then it'll be very kind of.
Like the only big trip we've planned since our honeymoon. That's okay, in the grand scheme of things,
Yes.
we're okay.
Well, and I'm partnered with Matt.
Good evening, how are you? Very good. Tonight.
Thank you.
Interesting.
I hope so.
Yes, a little too busy.
Me too. Yeah, the top one on each one.
Typical,
You're not on.
Second,
Oh, that's right, that's just.
first, second Thursday and stuff, how that goes.
Thank you. How are babies of the tech?
Where is it now?
How are
Behaving.
babies of the tech, as far as you know?
Behaving.
It's gonna be fans.
Behaving.
So our teams that are allowing fans in the first 2 weeks. Kansas City Club. Not a hurricane at all.
Call the September 10th, 2020 regular meeting of the Bedford County School Board to order. Ms. Johnson, please call the roll.
Mr. Leamy?
Here.
Ms. Kirby?
Here.
Ms. Harrison?
Here.
Dr. Hicks?
Here.
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Dr. Smith?
Here,
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Please stand if you're able and join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we move item 6.02 to underneath the consent agenda and then keep everything else the same.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Kirby to move item 6.02 to directly follow the consent agenda while leaving the rest of the agenda intact. Reason for that is I have to work tonight, and so I may not, depending upon the length of the meeting, I may not be here. So we'd like to go ahead and move that up for discussion before I depart. So do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, so that would not be part of the consent agenda, it would be like a separate item?
It would
It would
be
be a separate
it would be
item,
yes.
a separate item immediately following the consent.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Hicks, discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public comment, do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Do we have anybody present who would like to speak? Ms. DeLong?
I can give you my update from the day if you want.
You absolutely sure?
Absolutely sure.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion by Ms. Kirby, do I have a second?
second.
Second by Dr. Mealy, discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Item 6.02, I'm gonna let Dr. Mealy, she's been doing all of the heavy lifting on that, so I'll let her update the board on the superintendent search.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, I have been sending you a lot of emails regarding this, but I wanted you to be fully informed of everything that was going on. So, and I have talked extensively with Wade Anderson regarding this contract. The one thing that he was concerned about with regard to this was the indemnity, holding a third party responsible. So if you look at section 7 and letter E, other than a few minor corrections here and there, really for language, more than substance. Letter E is the thing that he changed. HYA did also have some input into that, so we finally ended up with letter E down there. Now, Dr. Hicks, I know that you wanted a not to exceed price, you said that, and I did communicate that to Mr. Anderson, but he said since he has made the contract Exhibit A with the advertising and Exhibit B with the due diligence, or exhibit, that's still part of Exhibit A. He said that should take care of that you have it in, in the contract with each one with whatever you decide. He also wanted, if we had any questions about that I could call him back. But they also we did pass this by Mr. Hagler as well. So he reviewed it specifically with attention to the RFQ that was sent out regarding this. And he emailed me back saying that he believed that the contract was in order as well. So we've gotten the Hazard to sign it, and we cannot move forward with anything else unless we accept the contract and I guess Mr. Leamy would sign it and then return it to HYA.
Has everybody had a chance, the opportunity to review it?
Yeah.
And everybody good with it? Okay, good consensus then? All right. Sounds good.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, do you want to look at setting a meeting since it relates to this, or do you want to wait until later? I can do it
Let me go ahead and
before.
execute it, and then we'll be in contact with him and see, because we're gonna have to come up with a date that's mutually,
Right, well, that's what he
agreeable.
wanted me to do tonight. I have dates, pretty much he will do anything that we want.
Okay, well, get some dates from him, shoot, and let me know what dates are good for him, and then I'll contact each board member. I'll poll the board members and see what dates are good, and we'll move from there.
Okay, can anybody at this time tell me any dates that wouldn't work for them? For instance, like next week is not gonna work for me. And I think
Next
Ms.
week
Kirby,
will
you
not
said
work
it
for
wasn't
me.
gonna work for you.
Any Wednesday is not good.
No Wednesday. Any other days or specific dates people,
I have a prior commitment on the 16th.
that would be next
Well, that'd be
week,
next
so
week anyway, so
Yeah.
we're avoiding that.
anybody else have any?
No.
Okay,
Not for the month of September.
and I assume we want to do this in September.
Yes.
Yeah, put down the 21st, which is the following Monday next week.
That's not a good
Yeah, that Monday's not a good night.
So no Wednesday and no September 21st and not next week, so I'm looking beyond that. Okay?
Yeah, see what works for him, and then let me know, and then I'll poll everybody, and we'll nail a date down in September.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome.
Superintendent's report, item 4.01. Dr. Shook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We started school on Tuesday, if you hadn't noticed. And we'd like to spend a little bit of time just kind of sharing how it's gone. And as I've done in the past, I'm inviting a few other staff members to kind of join me in this update. Dr. Woodford, who will speak a bit about the learning side, and Dr. Dewis, who will speak on the operational side. And we'll take questions throughout. You'll see on the agenda, when that whole piece is kind of over, then we've got two other specific related items that were requested by individual board members. And then we'll jump to those at that time. So I guess I would say, and we probably all sound like a broken record when we say this, but this was a very different opening for us as a community, for our children, for our staff, for everyone, really. And it was just very, very different. I've had a tradition since I've been here of visiting every campus on the first day. And I continued that, but the first day was 3 different days because of the way that we staggered. And selfishly, I like this a lot more because I was able to spend a little bit more time on each campus, especially the last 2 days. It was still a bit tight on the first day. But I guess the first thing I want to say, and I know you all will join me in saying this, is just a big thanks to our staff. I mean, there has been so much planning going into this, and we know we don't have the perfect plan, and we've never stated that our plan was perfect. But it is a really good plan, and I think, there comes a point where you have to execute your plan, and from what I saw, it was executed very well over the last few days. That doesn't mean it was easy, and it was certainly different. And I guess I also need to thank the families out there and the young people that we serve, because they really did their part too, from what one person can observe, and you'll hear from others. So let me tell you before I turn things over to Dr. Woodford, 2 things that I think are really important that we're not able to share because we just don't have the information tonight. But you'll get that information when it is available. The first has to do with our budget, and as I think you all know, because I think you get all the same VSBA emails that we get, the General Assembly reconvened their special session on the 18th of August, and we have yet to get any budget information out of that special session. And so we're really not in a position to be optimistic or pessimistic about what may happen. I will share a few things that are on the docket that various delegates or senators have proposed that, if they were approved, would be very positive. One is essentially what we're kind of referring to as a hold harmless in average daily membership. Essentially would say, regardless of how many children actually show up this year, you would get funded at the higher of what you had this fall and what you had as of last spring's reporting in March. That would be a dream come true for us and probably for most districts. The best information I have from our lobbyist, and I'm not saying he has all the answers, is that although there does seem to be some support for this, it doesn't appear that decision would be made in this special session. And then if it is made, it would be made in the regular session, which begins in January, which of course makes it very problematic for you all and us to plan on that. But I did want you to know, because there are people fighting for us and proposing that. A similar one that wouldn't give nearly the same relief, but would still be something, is one that would basically reimburse us for the loss of sales tax. And again, no movement on that at this moment. The thing I do remind, and I think I put this in the email I sent a couple weeks ago on this, is they are working from the governor's revised proposal. That's like their anchor point. They can do anything with that budget as they do in the regular cycle. But the governor did remove all of the, if you remember that term, unallotted, all unallotted education funding, the largest of which was the 2% pay raise, is gone from the governor's proposal, and I have not heard of any movement to resurrect that in this cycle. I think the efforts on the ADM and or the sales tax, it's really more about just kind of protecting the core mission of what we all do, and I think that's where the energy is being, rightfully or wrongfully directed at the state level. So, membership is still key for us, and I'll talk about that in a second. But our hope is that by our next meeting in October, not only will we have a good handle on membership, but this General Assembly will have either taken some of this action or will have adjourned for this special session, and we'll know that we either have or don't have reassurances going into January. But I guess I just mentioned that because many of you talked to delegates and senators and may have contacts in the governor's office and things like that, and to know that if it doesn't happen in this session, it doesn't mean that it's dead. And it's something that I think really impacts everyone pretty much the same across the state. So speaking of membership, we would normally at a meeting like this give you a good number of membership, and we simply don't have that this evening for a couple of reasons. One is that our 7th through 12th graders in the blended model on the B-day schedule haven't even had a day yet. That day is tomorrow. But even beyond that, verifying attendance, especially through our Bedford Connects program, has just been a little bit more of a challenge, and we don't want to put a number out to you all or to the public that we feel like is overstating membership or understating the membership. But what I can assure you is that when we have a good number, we will send it to you, as we have in the past, because we know you're all as anxious as we are to have that. So let me pause there before I turn things over to Dr. Woodford and ask if anyone has questions about either the budget or the membership piece.
Dr. Shook, will the state be calculating the 10-day membership as they have in the past? Or will we be collecting a 10-day membership to send to the state? How is
Okay,
that?
so the state does not do a 10-day membership. That's something we've done internally, which I think is a pretty common practice, because usually in normal times, which we know this isn't, in normal times when everyone starts on the same day and everyone comes in person, by that 10th day, we pretty much have figured, those that took vacations this week, and believe me, there are some that did. I know that sounds a little bit interesting, but and those that may have moved over the summer that we lost track of and had officially withdrawn. I think we're probably going to want to give ourselves more than 10 days for that assurance. The first actual report that I'm aware of that's due to the state is our fall membership, which is tied historically to September 30th. Is that right, Dr. Dewis? I don't know if they're even going to hold that date, but that is not the one we're funded off of. The one we're funded off of is the March average daily membership. And but again, through Mr. Blankenship's work and Mr. Hagler's work with the budget, we generally have a pretty good sense of if we're at a certain place by day 10, we feel reasonably confident of where the money will be. So that's a long way of saying it's probably going to be a 10+ day on this. Does other staff want to comment on that, or you all feel, you're nodding, so can't see faces through the mask, but I think, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Woodford, if you'd give an update on learning.
So I first want to just say it was so good to have students back in the buildings. I had this surreal moment when the first youngsters, I saw them walking in and walking down the hallways, and it's like that proud mother, like, I can't believe we've made it to here. And I just have to say, we could not have done this without fantastic administrators and fantastic teachers and staff at the school level. They've done a wonderful job. At the elementary and middle school buildings with their K-6 learners, there's been extensive work on protocols for physical distancing, teaching students the new rules of how to walk in a line and stay distanced. Our schools have put circles 6 feet separated all over so kids know exactly where to stand. And the staff is working really hard to teach students how to safely move around the school, how to not go into the bathrooms if there are already 2 people in there, how to walk on the right side at all times, distanced, so when you're passing people. They were all wearing masks, and there were no issues with that. And the best part of really, there were so many smiles, beautiful classrooms, and the teachers were just so welcoming. Some schools were giving virtual tours of buildings. I know there was some concern about our students moving up to a new building, not being able to see that building. And I think our teachers did a great job of reaching out to families and students and making them feel comfortable doing some maybe some virtual meetings with students, and doing some virtual tours of the classroom and things like that. And the amazing thing was, my biggest question to our kindergarten principals was, how did our kindergartners do coming in? Were there a lot of criers? And the answer was pretty much no. And I think in talking to the principals, what we realized was the separation anxiety wasn't there because the parents weren't walking them in. That it was, you're getting off the bus, or you're getting out of the car, and bye, mom and dad. And they came in, so there was very little upset, and it was very calm and very quiet. It was not chaotic, it was just beautiful. And so our teachers were excited to get kids back in the classrooms, and they were all working hard. In our blended learning model at our high school buildings for grades 7 through 12, I have to say the same thing. The teachers have worked so hard to get their Canvas courses ready for this model of instruction. Our first group of students arrived today at our high schools at Susie G. Gibson and Alt Ed. Things went very smoothly with student arrival, movement to their learning coach classrooms, lunch delivery, and dismissal. The learning coaches were doing a great job. They've received training and lessons that they're sharing with students to assist them with study skills, organization, and working in the blended environment. And they also worked very hard, our IT staff and our ITRTs, with any Chromebook issues we were having. If things weren't connecting, they were answering those very quickly. So again, it was a beautiful first day on the high school campuses also. In Bedford Connects, our enrollment numbers right now are at 2,837. And we have 10 preschoolers who are also in virtual preschool. Our K-6 start with our Bedford Connects went well. Most of our teachers in this grade span are completely working in Bedford Connects. So our kindergarten through 6th grade teachers, their entire classroom is in Bedford Connects, and they're 100% virtual teachers. And they've worked hard in teams to create wonderful Canvas courses, and to work with students and parents on login issues. And so we saw the K-6 really go very smoothly with our Bedford Connects. Our 7th through 12th grade start went well for many students. We are working on some technical issues with PowerSchool and Canvas not mixing together, and it caused some confusion for students. And so we really put a team together today to kind of focus on that. That team will come back tomorrow to really deal with some issues we had in Canvas and PowerSchool merging. And part of that issue is because there are so many specialty courses at the high school, our AP courses, some of our foreign language, some of our courses that have small numbers of students, that we couldn't pull those teachers over to Bedford Connects 100%, or students on campus wouldn't have had access to those teachers in that course. So for our 7 through 12 teachers, several of them, a lot of them, are teaching a group on campus, and they're also teaching a Bedford Connects virtual group. And we talked a lot about this in the summer because we wanted to preserve all of our programs. We felt this was the best. However, we did not realize some of the technical issues in PowerSchool that we would experience by having those teachers working in 2 environments. And so we are really working to streamline technical support and schedule support, and making sure we're putting a lot of hands on deck to answer parent phone calls as quickly and as efficiently as possible. I do want to say that, again, I just really appreciate the ITRTs, the ITs at the school level, the base school principals who are also working with parents in Bedford Connects to get Google sign-ins and get Chromebooks working. And it's just been wonderful, everyone, just really working to support students. And so we'll continue to work through those technical glitches that we've had, especially today. This was our first day where we really saw some major computer glitches. And so we're continuing to work on that, and we've put staff in place to handle that tomorrow. And so I'd like to ask Dr. Dewis if he can just share a little bit of information about the support we've given to some parents for internet and our ability to offer devices to our K through 2 students.
Thank you. So first on the devices, since that's what you were just mentioning, it had been our plan all along to have Chromebooks in the hands of our 3rd graders and older students. And so that plan was put into place and accomplished, those devices being handed out to anyone getting them new over the past couple of weeks. That still left some of our younger students, our K2 kids, who are in the 100% remote option, our Bedford Connects program, maybe being short-handed at home with devices. Some families had a computer, a laptop, or a tablet that they were comfortable using, and some did not. And so through some just good work of taking good stock of what we had in place in the schools already, and in what we had purchased, our technology department was able to get enough devices available for any K2 family who said that they needed that at home. So those devices were picked up over the last week or so, and a few still are trickling in as families thought they may be okay with the device they had, but maybe it's not working out with multiple kids at home or something like that. So we're trying to work with them best we can with the devices we've had, and I think we've been able to meet those needs. We weren't certain of that through the summer, but after Chromebooks came home from last March and we were able to take better stock of all of that and kind of work through it, we were able to do that. It's hard to order new devices now, just as a side note, back ordered until November, December from the last time we checked. So we just being efficient with what we already had, that was able to work out. So that's one part of the technology at home. The other part is just internet accessibility. And as you are aware, the county is in the process of wrapping up a couple of year initiative to put up new towers and get a new service provider in the county to serve areas that had previously been underserved with good broadband internet access. And so the timing of the start of school and the wrapping up of many of those towers has really coincided. So we've seen a number of families able to get onto service, or at least see it on the horizon, to have hope for it in the upcoming weeks with the new service. And we've realized that other providers like B2X and Shintel and Comcast, Xfinity, and others are also available sometimes, and people may not have realized it. So we've done a lot of study of that, provided a lot of information to families, really starting with our Bedford Connects families. And knowing that, the Bedford Area Educational Foundation committed to and has already donated $15,000 to us to assist families with any installation fees associated with new internet service they may be getting. So we put a need-based application process in place, and we've had a number of families take us up on that so far, and we anticipate that over the next month to 6 weeks, we'll roll it out to even additional families beyond Bedford Connects who may need it for the hybrid model or just other needs. That was some generous work from community partners to have raised that money. I think they've even exceeded that amount, and so we may have additional funds available. And that's in addition to CARES Act money that the county has indicated they would allow families, if needed, to tap into for internet service, just as they would for helping with their electric bills or water bills in the COVID time period. And so we've just begun with those families, but we're excited about that donation, and Mr. Edwards and I are working on that program, family by family, as the needs come to us. We still have some pockets where hotspots, cellular hotspots are what's needed, and we have a good source for those at a good price. So got an order of those coming as well. So we feel like we'll be able to meet most needs and help families get to that point, even financially.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. And just to finish up, as you know, at our last board meeting, you asked that we move all of the students on our wait list over to Bedford Connects, and we were able to do that. Anyone who called after that deadline that the board set, we moved to a second waiting list and explained to parents that basically we were moving staff, and so we may not be able to accommodate that waiting list because once we moved staff, we had to make sure that we had staff in the schools or staff in Bedford Connects. At this time, we have 81 students who are now on the waiting list for Bedford Connects. Once we get and feel we have a very firm handle on how many students are in our classrooms at the school level, we'll work with principals to see if they feel they have enough room for any students who want to return to the schools, which has happened. I think it's been great that it's been going well, and so some parents are now saying, this is too overwhelming, I'd like for my kids to go back to school, so we're trying to do that. And it may also give us some more room in Bedford Connect. So we feel pretty good about that 81, but we are going to be watching numbers because we have moved a tremendous amount of staff, and we don't want anyone not to have the support or the teachers they need. And I'm really proud to say we've been able to do all of that with just our principals working with us, and we haven't had to hire new staff, even though we talked about that might be a possibility, but we didn't have to. We've hired new teachers for open spots, but we haven't had to get additional staff to do this. So I'm happy to take questions if.
Mr. Chairman, I do have some questions about Bedford Connects. And I have read your expectations and procedures. Thank you for doing that. I thought that was really well done, and the sample schedules that you had worked really well, or looked really well to me. Tell me what you define as meaningful interaction for teachers.
So the Virginia Department of Education has put out some guidelines, and this is for attendance. And so the Department of Education is saying that for us to look at attendance, there has to be meaningful interaction with a teacher. Examples they've given is working in Canvas and logging in every day, which you can monitor in Canvas, participating in a live session with a teacher or a meeting, a phone call with families, and making sure that there is working going on the other side. We have talked just this week about giving parents a little bit firmer expectations of what that should look like. What we're finding is some are signing on very late at night, but there's not a lot of activity in Canvas. And so we're gonna kind of look at that over the weekend and next week to give parents a little bit more instruction there. But really, the Virginia Department of Ed has defined that as contact and students doing their work. So if on an A day, B day, if teachers assign work on A day, and when the students come back to the blended learning environment and they have all their work done, obviously they've done that work. So that would be acceptable, meaningful interaction. Where you can say that kids are progressing and doing the work that's been assigned to them and they're staying on track.
I'm really concerned about, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'm concerned about, or maybe not concerned, I'm interested in, especially elementary school, when you're talking K through 5. Let's just suppose I'm teaching reading or math. Is the expectation that the teachers will have live instruction for them on every day, as the memo from Dr. Lane says?
We don't necessarily require live. We're requiring lessons. One of the things that we said early on with Bedford Connects is we would be flexible. So we do have parents who are working during the day and doing instruction in the evenings. And so we have not said that they have to have live in-person lessons with the whole group on with them. Because we are trying to be very flexible. A lot of our younger teachers, or when I say not they're younger, but they have younger students, are doing some of those live lessons or small groups or even one-on-one. They all spoke to parents and talked to parents about what are good times for you because they're supporting their students. And some of our teachers are doing some evening hours to work with parents, some are doing middle of the day, early in the morning. So it's a variety, and it's designed that way to be flexible rather than everybody has to sign on at 9 o'clock and stay online like you would if you were in school all day.
My concern with that is that if you have a video that you're uploading, that's not interactive, that's passive. And it calls for meaningful interaction. And I'm concerned, just as a former teacher and principal, that we spend every day, even in the brick and mortar buildings right now, every day they're having math and every day they're having reading. And although within that time period they may have lessons that they can do that they might be doing independently, it's concerning, especially when you're talking about tier 2 and tier 3 students who are behind, and let's face it, everyone's behind, everyone's a tier 2 or tier 3 right now, as to how that's going to, you're a reading specialist. I mean, it's something you do every single day and you practice every day. And it concerns me that teachers aren't going to actually see that every day and students aren't going to do that every day.
Well, I will say that we do have reading specialists assigned, and we are looking, once we get our final numbers, looking at remediation money so that we can look at tutors. And there will be some students when teachers have the time to work with them and assess them that will need those additional supports and additional one-on-one instruction, and we'll provide that just like if they were in school during the day.
What are they doing right now for like tier 2 and tier 3 students?
Well, they've only had them for a couple of days.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think anybody even at the school level is currently doing that. So, but they have classes just like the teachers at school. So our goal for this week and next week is really to work on that social emotional, getting them in routines, getting them logged in, understanding how Canvas works. And then we'll begin PALS has gone virtual. We have some virtual assessments and things that we're working through. And so teachers will have that data. We've also assigned grade level chairs that are going to help monitor that data, some instructional support. And so we will begin to group students, and the teachers will begin to do that. And so I think we just need to give, our teachers are great. I think as we give them time, they will come up with really innovative ways that even I'm not even thinking about at this time to, work and meet the needs of their kids, whether it's one-on-one or a small group or, we're finding with our younger kids, the parents, kind of want them in a routine. And so we'll support that. And we also want to make sure when we're doing live lessons that we are actually working with students and not parents who are, assisting students throughout the whole lesson. And so we're kind of learning a little bit with that because that's happened a little bit this week and as we've done some live lessons. And so we'll kind of firm up, once we talk to the teachers about how many kids, are they doing a lot of evening hours? Do we need to make some adjustments? I think we're really just trying to get to know our kids and what they need.
And a couple more questions. You mentioned PALS, and I've read the SUPES memos on that. What are we doing for the early math assessments where they're calling for them to be in person? Do we have any plans about that right now, or what we're going to do? And the PALS, if I'm not mistaken, will be non-standard if they don't come in, right? Okay.
And I can't speak to that, as Dr. Miller probably can since she oversees that. So I don't know if you want to take that.
And you may not have any plans at this point because this is pretty new. I'm just asking, do you?
We're still working on that. I've been meeting with the admin from Bedford Connects, and we're getting a plan together for that. But you are correct, the PALS won't be standardized for this year if it's given online or virtually.
Okay, and the child behavior rating scale, is that in person or can that be done remotely at all?
I am under the impression right now that it can be done virtually, and we're still working through that as well with the BKRP and everything.
Okay. I also wanted to ask about, and I know this is early, I'm just thinking, so I don't expect that you have plans all for this. This is just me thinking ahead. What are we doing about assessments for with this, and what I'm particularly interested in is since we have a virtual environment and a hybrid, and then we have some children who are totally in class, are we gonna have any common assessments? I think that would really help us determine how well is virtual working, how well is the hybrid, how well is it just brick and mortar? Are we thinking
Well,
about, talking about that at all?
One of the,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was.
So for comment for, are you talking, so when we're looking at the VKRP, we'll bring those students in and test them. We're looking at possibly the work days, the collab days. So they'll come in and we can test them that way. And then the PALs, that's gonna be, the PALs will be given across
Right.
the division.
I know what you're.
And the common assessments, I'm
Yeah.
thinking more like a benchmark of some
So,
sort.
last year with Power Assessment, it transferred to a new company and it wasn't being supported and the platform was not good. And so they allowed us to use the platform without any technical support last year. And in the spring, we met with the company to say, we are very disappointed, like this, our teachers can't use this product, it's not good assessments, when are you gonna get it fixed? And they couldn't give us an answer. So what we did is we began to look at other products, and Mr. Blankenship and Dr. Dewis's team has worked with some principals and some central office staff. And again, this kind of happened when COVID came, but we decided to move to Illuminate,
Yeah.
which is a much better product, but we want to give, it takes a lot to upload and train teachers. And so we did not want to give that overwhelming, here's Canvas, here's everything else. And now you have to learn a new assessment product. Mr. Blankenship, they've had several meetings, we've designated leads in every school, and they are gonna work once things kind of settle down the next couple of weeks to get all of that information uploaded, teachers, students uploaded to the system, so then we can begin to create some common assessments. They'll have some, and they also will have the assessments that have been created statewide that we can use through that. So it won't be as quick as it would have been if we had had
Right,
Power
I understand
Assessment
that.
working.
Just that we're heading in that direction.
Absolutely,
Because I
we
think
are.
that's gonna be a really important data to
We
look at.
agree with that 100%, yes.
I'm
Dr.
also-
Mealy, Ms. Hairston has a question.
sorry.
Would you yield?
Thank you. Dr. Woodford, just a question to sort of piggyback off of a question that Dr. Mealy asked you. I know you had mentioned 2 weeks in, let's give our Bedford Connect teachers and students some time to just adjust and adapt, and I certainly agree with that. They certainly need that. So say we're 2 weeks in, or maybe even a month in. Can you give us an idea of what it would look like in terms of instruction for, say, those kindergarten, first and maybe second, those young elementary students who really do need that time with the teacher? And I certainly think that it can be done through Bedford Connect.
Right.
So can you give us some idea if that's a direction that we're looking at or thinking about?
Well, actually, our K-1-2 teachers are already thinking about it. This
Okay.
week, they've been doing calendar time and morning meetings with as many kids who can sign on as possible. They are trying to reach out to kids who are not signing on, who are not, and they're calling. And of course, we're trying to get phone numbers and get those connections working. So they are doing some live lessons. They've already done, we have a librarian who is doing read alouds to students throughout the day. And so instruction will look as close to, especially for those young ones, as a classroom as it can be in the virtual world. They're turning in the lesson plans and they have some required instructional blocks that they have to plan for and SOLs and everything. So I think what we are finding is that the teachers are figuring out what works for their class and what works for their students. And the nice thing about the K-6 is that those teachers are working together. So some of them are even departmentalizing. So some of our 4th, 5th, 6th graders have multiple teachers, just like if they were in the school. And our kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd are doing some, grouping of students. So I think as it develops, it will be as much as it can be in a virtual environment. We are using Virtual Virginia, the platform, to bring in some additional resources. So I can't say that I've seen it in action this week with my eyes, but I know that they are watching it, the administrators and instructional support, they've been into Canvas to kind of see what's in there and what parents are seeing. And we've had some really positive feedback from those parents who have been assisting their students in that younger environment.
So we can conclude that moving forward, say within maybe 2.5, 3 weeks, that we can anticipate that our K-5 students will have more direct instruction from the virtual teacher.
I'm not sure what you're asking me. You mean live instruction
Yeah.
or?
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to guarantee that since I'm not,
I guess
we are
for-
trying to be really flexible. So for kids who, if they do a live group lesson, not all students may be there. There are definitely opportunities for that. And there are definitely, that's what they're working toward, to offer those opportunities at multiple times during the day. I want to say, we want to be very careful about, and we are talking to Wade Anderson about, if students are on live lessons, if someone videotapes students and things like, so we want to also be very careful in that live environment that we can control it really well so that we don't have people coming into the session that shouldn't be there. We also want to make sure that parents aren't recording and then sharing that when we have other students online. So we're just really trying to be super mindful of those things and careful. So yes, there will be some live lessons. I can't say they'll be at particular times, or every kindergarten will be on at a certain time or every first grader will be on at a certain time, but that's definitely one of the methods they would use.
I would say that it would concern me if we don't give our students that opportunity
Sure.
to have that time with the teacher. I would hope that we put some safeguards in place to prevent some of these problems that you're concerned about in terms of privacy and various things like that. But we do know that that's going to perhaps happen. I'm sure other divisions have
Especially with their
encountered
tech-savvy
that as
kids.
well.
Yeah.
But when we look at our students who are already receiving direct instruction that are doing face-to-face, I'm almost thinking we may be doing our other students, our Bedford Connects students, particularly those elementary students, an injustice if we're not giving them adequate time with the teacher.
I would just say that the teachers that we have doing that instruction they're at it 8 to 10 hours a day, just like our face-to-face teachers, and they are giving them 150%. So I don't think our kids will be lacking anything. I think it's a different mode of learning and it's a different mode of instruction. It has to be because it's 100% virtual. But I think our teachers are very talented and they are looking to see what works best for their groups of kids.
Absolutely, I would agree with you. We've got some wonderful, talented students and teachers.
Yes.
And I do realize that we're talking two different platforms. However, other school divisions are doing virtual school and they are actually giving some direct instructional time with the students, and I think that that's very important for our division to consider the same thing.
I agree with you and I would say there is some direct instruction, but it may not just, I know some school divisions are saying you log on at 8, just like you're walking in the classroom and you stay on till 2. And we are being more flexible than that to work with their parents who may not have a choice, who need their kids to be in the remote environment. So we're trying to just work with each family.
Any questions? Dr.
I just have one more thing I want to say. I've been talking extensively to people in Roanoke County, Roanoke City, and Franklin County with their virtual. And one of the things I just want to put in a plug for teachers here is that they're running into problems, and we may not have that just yet. It might not occur here, but just to put it out there, of kids who don't sign on when they're supposed to, and then what are they doing about that? And administrators in other counties are telling me that, teachers are becoming very upset because they feel responsible and they want to do that, and they spend their office hours trying to make that connection. And I'm just wondering if you all, certainly can't answer that tonight, would consider, what do you do if that kid just doesn't do that? I mean, I've called as a teacher twice. Is there somebody else that can help these teachers so that their time is better used doing the things that we need them to do rather than trying to follow up with those children?
Yes.
And I think your letter, by the way, is a good idea, because I've heard from even parents who were a little confused. So I think trying to firm up something with a letter is a great idea.
And I will say, right now, we're trying to go in and find kids who haven't signed on at all, that we definitely need to get them connected, and so, yes, we are working on that.
Any other questions?
Okay, so if we could transition to Dr. Dewis now to talk about nutrition, transportation, some of the operational pieces that are really important for returning.
Right, one of the most visible and stressful parts of any start to school year is the transportation of kids to and from school. And almost every year on the first day or days, we have traffic backups, we have lots of parents driving who may not normally do that. We have new procedures to get used to and all that sort of thing. And of course, this year, that was enhanced, even more. We have now gotten information to all the schools about bus routes and times. And the schools have done a good job in multiple ways trying to get that out to families. The high schools have been where they're working on A days and B days, and schedules have changed to try to accommodate learning needs, and parents might have changed their minds about what they had indicated, or if they indicated anything in the questionnaire that we sent at the end of mid and end of July. That has caused some need to call and make a change, and maybe it didn't work out exactly on the first day as it hoped. But each day there have been more and more of those issues addressed at the elementary level, because they've now been in a few days. Middle school level, the same thing, and that will happen over the next few days with the high school level as well. We've provided some additional clerical help to our transportation department, just to field calls. That's more than a full-time job right now, just getting the request in, or the concern, or the question, and then having it documented so that we can get back to them just as soon as we can work that out. It's a stressful part of the school year to staff and to parents and kids, and we know that. And most parents have been very flexible and accommodating and patient. The other part of transportation, besides our buses, and I'll just say this about buses too, we're having to be very precise with our planning, just to have the appropriate distancing on buses, and not overload them so kids aren't right on top of each other sitting on the buses. So we are, because of that need to be precise, we're having to be just careful and methodical about adding kids to buses where they're requested to do that, and that just takes a little bit of time. So it's going to work itself out in just a matter of days here, and we just know that that's an ongoing process. We appreciate all the work that's been going on. Schools are letting us know, parents are letting us know, and we'll catch up to that soon. And aside from buses, we also asked as many parents as could swing it to provide transportation to school if they could, whether that's with a big brother or sister or themselves. We've seen a lot of grandparents and some even carpooling going on in lines where that's safe to do, and families think that's the way they need to do it. And so we have seen some increased numbers of cars at some of our schools. That's been offset a little by the number of kids who are 100% remote, or maybe as grade levels shifted to other schools. So it hasn't hit all the schools really hard. But there have been a few that have had some long lines, traffic in the road on the first few days. And I think, for example, I was at Forest Middle just because of the new traffic pattern there that has been finished. And yesterday was they were swamped. The cars were there, long lines. Today, it went very, very quickly, and cars were not backing out into the 221 there. And I think that's what we're seeing, improvements at schools really across the county where they're either landlocked, don't have a lot of lead driveway, that sort of thing. So Sheriff's Department's helping a lot with that as well as staff in the schools and as many folks as we can get out there to help too. As far as nutrition goes, the big news in the last few days is that the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, announced that after we had announced all of our plans for meal pricing and how that would work, they announced that they were going to extend the waiver on to allow schools to do what they call the summer feeding program, which is a much more flexible program. It's the one we were operating in the spring and summer when we were delivering meals and then having pickup of meals free of charge to students because every single meal is reimbursed at the same rate as a free meal, a really higher reimbursement rate than the typical National School Lunch Program. So we tried to get that word out quickly, through a blast at the end of last week and social media. We'll continue to beat that drum so everyone knows about that benefit through December or until, as long as funding allows. That's the way the waiver is stated. So we hope that that's basically through the winter holiday. And just to remind, we are also serving meals, of course, to students who are on campus at school. In our hybrid model, we're providing meals for them to take home for the days they're not at school. And we have pickup available to our Bedford Connects families as well. And all of that is under that summer feeding program waiver, free of charge to families through December. So we're excited about that. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about either transportation or nutrition or other areas.
Any questions? Johnson?
Just a comment, Billy. I thought all the videos that were on the YouTube channel were great, but I thought the loading and unloading buses video was especially helpful. I don't know if I were riding a bus or had a child that was riding a bus, I would have found that video to be really helpful going into it. So kudos to the team for that.
Never knew we had so many acting skills, right within our staff and our families.
Multi-talented staff, absolutely.
I had a question, Dr. Goes. It's something we had discussed, a possibility we had discussed. Do we have any motorists, or have we seen a trend of motorists getting impatient with the buses and passing them or doing other committing other unsafe acts while buses are stopped?
That's a great question. That is always a back to school point we have to hammer home. The Sheriff's Office has received a business partner donation to put up large signs across the county. You may have seen these. I think there are 10 of them at prominent points, reminding motorists to look out for buses, just as they had done for tractors earlier, on some of our rural roads. And so the Sheriff's Department has also been very visible at all of our schools during the first several days. Blue lights are flashing on the roads. They are even helping actively direct traffic when they need to. And of course, we have the few traffic guards. We have crossing guards at the key spots around the county. Drivers also have their eyes peeled for that when they're out on the road and not near the school. So they always report that in back to the Transportation Department. That gets reported to the Sheriff's Office if someone passes or there's no median, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's
one of the things that we had looked at as a possibility to get the word out is using PSAs with the local TV and radio stations. If we investigated that possibility?
We have not. We've been working with the Sheriff's Department, we haven't, but I think that's a good idea, and we certainly can do that.
Can I, to piggyback off of that, then how soon can that be done? Because we're already back in school. So could that be done like next week? Or
We'll explore how quickly we can put something like that together. It's a very important message to get out.
because I know.
And an ongoing one, not
Yeah.
just now, but
Well, like I
if
said,
we have
but-
something,
yeah.
we can recycle it later as well, yeah.
Yeah, well, I know we talked about it last month and it still evidently isn't done. may I ask a question? The summer feeding program you talked about and getting the funds for that, how far back does that go? Does that go to what we did in the spring? Does that apply? Because I
Right,
know
we
we
were
started delivering
reimbursed
meals
that.
early.
Right, we were reimbursed that way, under that method for meals, since the school closure in March. So all that we did March to May, and then all that we did in the summer as well, same reimbursement process.
So Mac, on the summer feeding program, how, is it based on the number of meals that we serve?
We just tally, rather than have a student come through a line and put a code in and charge them the amount, that process, it's a tally mark, and we just, now with this program, and we just submit the number of breakfast, the number of lunch, and get, that set reimbursement rate per meal.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Goos.
Okay, so before we go to the two items that board members requested, are there any general questions about reopening that maybe we didn't address that you all would wish one of us to try to respond to?
Yes.
Like Mr. Johnson, I watched the videos and I actually got my children to watch them too. I noticed the part about the sanitizing the playground equipment, which is a wonderful, wonderful idea. And it said that they would be sanitized in between each use. Will that be done every morning before any use as well?
Well, we are working out our protocols on that, and, I think there's research to show that UV sunlight addresses the need, addresses the virus as it sits outside. So I don't know that in early morning, I don't know that would be needed if it had been done the day before, or if it had sat and received that sunlight. Our custodians are working those systems out with the schedules and doing that at appropriate intervals.
Well, my concern with that would be, and I know, again, within this area, a lot of times we'll walk the track at Bedford Elementary School where they have the playground equipment there. And there are children on there playing after hours.
Community.
So that's community, and especially over the weekends, so that would need to be sanitized before the first group got on there Monday or the following day.
And I will say, the elementary principals actually talked about this, and they did decide to sanitize first thing in the morning. And you probably just don't know that because it was a conversation he wasn't in. But the custodians, that's the first thing they do, they sanitize before anybody goes out, so.
Okay, great, thank you so much. And then another question, if I noticed again in the videos that the water fountains will be closed, but kids are encouraged to bring water bottles, which is great. But how are they gonna fill up those water bottles once they get empty?
Right. We addressed that a little bit in the summer, when we had athletic conditioning going on, and of course with the great need for hydration during that athletic activity. We were, at that point, I was encouraging booster clubs and schools just to have additional water bottles on hand, bottled water on hand if kids did run out. I don't know that they're experiencing that at school, and if so, we will have to address it to make sure they have enough water. I've not heard that in the first few days, but if we do, we certainly.
Again, it's only been a couple of days, so I was just wondering what the plan would be. Could they fill up their bottles in the bathroom or something like that? They just need to be, I know that's gross, but or have access to the kitchen or somewhere that they can fill it up. I understand the need for cutting off fountains. But I also understand the need that if a kid's bottle goes empty by 9 o'clock, it needs to be filled.
True.
I think probably the healthier choice would be disposable cups from a water source rather than using personal water bottles to fill, simply because there is that risk if it's a if it's something that's been on someone's mouth and then we're moving it from a place or other people are handling it. So I think if schools begin to see a concern, we can talk about ways that we could access drinkable water with just disposable cups that would be provided to students at request.
Well, I think what Ms. Kirby's getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the source, the water source, not the container necessarily, but where are they getting, what's available for them to fill up whatever container we decide to allow them to use.
I don't think the concern was the water source, it is using common containers or using one that might, like a water fountain. So the source of the water is not really as much a concern as using any personal containers to fill from.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. What sources of water are available to the students to fill up whatever containers?
And I will defer to Dr. Dewis on that in terms of where appropriate sources are. I just wanted to say, we probably would still not encourage refilling personal water bottles. I just wanted to speak to that.
Because if we're shutting down water fountains, and, you know, the restroom, filling up in a restroom is unacceptable. That's a non-starter, so
Yeah, well,
we need to figure that out.
good point. I think that may be a different answer in different schools, you know, depending upon which have classroom sinks, which don't. So there's a variety, but we'll examine that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, then, Mr. Chairman, we have 2 requests from individual board members. The first came from Dr. Mealy about information regarding the CARES Act funding from the county. We sent some of that information in email to you all, and then at her request sent some more details, but before we address her questions and others that you may have, just as a reminder, this CARES Act is not the CARES Act funds, which is approximately 1.3 or 2? 1.3 that is going directly to the school division that we have until September of '22 to spend, and that we're being very conservative with right now, not knowing where the budget holes may be. There is now approximately just shy of 14 million in CARES Act funding that comes directly to Bedford County, and it came in 2 waves. And I can't say enough thanks to Mr. Hiss, the county administrator, who reached out to us and other agencies, along with the supervisors. I think we have one in the audience here, who are trying to be the most responsible with these funds. And so what we first sent you was the first wave that approximately 1.5 million for various items, and that's what we gave back to you. And there's another work session coming up on Monday evening that Dr. Dewis is going to be attending at the Board of Supervisors to talk about the second wave. And I think we mentioned in that email as well, not saying it's going to happen, but it's at least being talked about, the potential for some of our HVAC systems at some of our schools, some of our carpet, things that have been challenges for us in our CIP, and that Dr. Dewis and Mr. Hagler have worked with vendors who have worked out the contracts so that if the supervisors were to give us the green light Monday night, we could get those done by December, because that's the other key to the supervisors and the county funding is, whereas we've got till September of '22 on our funding, they only have till December of this year. And so there's a very tight criteria for that. But again, if you interact with your counterpart on the Board of Supervisors, I think a word of thanks is really appropriate for what they have done and what they might be able to do for us going forward. And it could actually be a win-win, because if they don't spend this money by December, then it's lost. So there's pressure on them as well. In this regard. So we don't really have anything more to share tonight than what we put in the email, but Dr. Mealy, you had asked for this, so If you have
Yes.
questions, I probably can't answer them, but somebody here probably can.
Yes, first, Mr. Hagler, I would just like to know exactly what funds have been expended for what. I mean, you said you didn't know in this email that it probably wasn't an exact figure. I'd like to know exactly what we spent on things. I just have, I think I don't disagree with a lot of the things that are on here. What bothers me is that we didn't know anything, we knew very little, let's put it that way, about what you had intended to do with that 1.5 million. I mean, I think we knew that certainly there would be money expended on nutrition, but I at least don't recall anything about a new van, for example. I didn't know that we were going to use CARES money to help train teachers. Again, I'm not saying that it's not appropriate, but as I read the guidelines, you're not supposed to use CARES money for something that's already in your budget. And certainly we have several $100,000 in our budget for teacher training. You know, we had talked about software, but in minutes of the meetings, we had said we were going to postpone that. We didn't say we were going to do it. We were going to revisit it later. We even said in minutes of the meetings that we were going to revisit the budget. I just have to understand why this Board of Supervisors knew about this and knew about it twice before we got this list as the board that's supposed to control and manage money of the division. I was just really concerned about that.
Was that a question or a comment?
Yes, the question was, I'm trying to understand, you need to help me understand why we weren't informed about this, but the Board of Supervisors had this list on July 27th and had it on August 24th, but we weren't apprised until August 25th.
Well, this is their money, and to spend as they see fit. And as I mentioned, we were invited along with a lot of other community agencies to put forward ideas for how that money could be spent. And so we looked for things that we were already doing and that known expenses, and we forwarded those items to them. There was no process in place to formally engage this board in that process, but I take the criticism that you're giving here, and I take responsibility for it. Our position was and is, this is not like a normal budget request. This is money that they don't have to give us a dime. So we really see this as a positive, and
Well, I think
How
you're
about,
gonna,
if I may, how about going forward, when you send a proposal or a wish list to the Board of Supervisors, CC board members, so that we're in the loop on what's going on? I think would that solve the problem?
yeah, and I just don't think that, again, I don't disagree with a lot of what's on this list here, but I don't think it should be purchased and put into place before this board, who again is supposed to, under the code, control and manage money, that it should be encumbered or spent until the board has approved it. I just think we're getting out of line.
Going forward, please CC all board members with any correspondence that you have going to the Board of Supervisors relating to CARES money.
And to your point, Mr. Leamy, we had conversations with them, and they asked us for input along the way, but the documents that ultimately got approved were ones that Mr. Hiss and his team put together.
Well,
yes,
I mean,
we can certainly draw your attention to the items in the supervisor's agenda. I should have done that. I apologize for that.
Just
That
going
could have easily
forward,
been done.
if you're sending anything to the Board of Supervisors, you know, like a wish list or anything like that related to CARES money, CC board members so we know what's going on.
So is there anything related to Monday night that you could send the board as well that goes beyond what we put in the email to them?
The largest items that had been discussed along those lines at the last supervisor's work session had related to items that had been in our CIP for a number of years. Carpet replacement and HVAC.
Got it, but the large items, that's great. How about all items?
Right. those are the items. So I certainly, I'll enumerate them.
For Monday night, I just wanted to make sure since we're here and the question was asked, there's,
Just CC us, keep us informed, and I think that'll solve the problem.
Mr.
Yes, Ms.
Chairman.
Harris.
I certainly agree with you, asking Dr. Shook to CC us on that, but I think we're missing another important piece here, is the discussion. That part where we as board members should be involved in the discussion of what should be on that list. Is that not our role and responsibility? So I would ask that the board add the other piece to that, besides CCing us on the list that they have developed, let's also engage in a discussion among the board members as to what should be on that list.
Once we have the information on what's going forward, that will position us to be able to have that conversation.
So then so if I'm hearing you correctly then, so if he CCs us on it, that is not definitive, the board will still have an opportunity to discuss those items on that list and then take a vote on whether we agree to the list that's being developed?
We need to know about, here's the deal. We need to be informed on what's going on between the administration and the county, okay? Once we have that information, that will allow us to ask questions on why these particular items are on there and what the purpose for that is. Does that
And
make
can we
sense?
make changes at that point? Because it almost sounds like it's definitive to me. If that list is going to the Board of Supervisors, then that list appears to me to be definitive.
I don't see it as definitive.
Okay, so then it can be brought back to the board for discussion and potential changes or additions or deletion.
We can discuss anything in a meeting. We just need to put it on the agenda.
My concern here is that we're missing out on a very key role as a board member, and that is having the opportunity to discuss how we feel the money should be spent. Now, I'm not taking away from the responsibility that Dr. Shook and his team has in developing the list. I'm just saying that we as a board should approve that list.
What we're doing right now is similar to what you're talking about. Dr. Mealy asked that this be put on the agenda for discussion. We're discussing it. And then once we have information on what administration is sending a wish list to the county,
Then it comes back
we
to
can
us.
certainly discuss it in a meeting. We just need to put that on the agenda for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm getting a little confused because if we bring that back, then the Board of Supervisors can't approve it because then the Board of Supervisors won't have the list that's been reviewed by the board. See, I think where we need to be is that, Dr. Shook can certainly and staff can certainly draw up a list, and then that needs to be an agenda item that we look at and we vote on and decide, is this how we want to do it? For example, the HVAC systems. I guess we can look at the CIP and see which schools are there, but if I remember correctly, please correct me if I'm not right, there was discussion about the carpet at Forest Middle School and replacing that. Well, we've already talked about that in this board, and we decided not to do that. And if you're gonna do that, you do it for every school, not just for Forest Middle School. So that's where I think we're missing the piece. Our job as a board is to control and manage money, to operate the school system, to have as much information, to be as fully informed as we possibly can be. That's in section 2 in paragraph D of his contract, that he is supposed to keep us fully and completely, those are the words that are in there, informed. And I just don't think when we get something like this, where stuff has already been spent, money has already been spent, he's usurped our power as a board to do what we need to do, which is discuss it and make a decision.
Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree that it would be very helpful to have that list going forward, but I guess my question is, well, in addition to my thanks to my supervisor for his advocacy on behalf of the much-needed, long overdue HVAC replacements at Huddleston and Manita Elementary Schools, my question for Dr. Shook is, in looking at the list, I think these are all very important COVID-related expenses that we incurred. None of us would have probably envisioned most of these 6-7 months ago, so that's kind of what the CARES Act is for. But my question is, if this board deviated from the list as approved by the supervisors, would that cause us to forfeit the CARES Act money that the supervisors appropriated to us?
I'm looking at Mr. Hagler. I think my understanding of the process is there are very specific criteria for what CARES Act monies can be spent on. And so significant work was done to look at expenses that we had already encumbered related to the return to school, and to talk to the county staff about those expenses. They then tried to translate that to their board along with everything else that was in that $7 million. And I think the spirit of it is we try to spend on what we said we would spend on. Now, those were estimates. They weren't actuals. And the county knows that. And so Mr. Hagler stays in contact with his counterpart over there, and our understanding is, to the extent that we can stay within the broad categories, that was the intent of the aid. It's to help us with things that the pandemic have caused in terms of hardships: meals, PPE, training, contacting families, all of the things that were not specifically budgeted for necessarily, or are things that this opportunity has presented itself to allow us to fund that we couldn't fund in the budget. So as it pertains to the capital projects that will be on their docket for Monday night, none of these are new projects. These are all things that we've asked for funding for, and we haven't been able to because of competing interests. And so again, I do apologize if we haven't followed standard protocol on this. I will tell you, this happened very quickly. And the second round specifically, I don't think the county was notified until late July. And I don't think at that point, I mean, it was only, I'm looking at Dr. Dewis and Mr. Hagler, I think it was only like yesterday perhaps that we even got confirmation that doing these HVAC projects would satisfy the CARES Act, and that the vendors who could perform that work had a contract lined up in a way that it met state and federal guidelines, and the work could be done by December. So I guess I will take all the criticism, and it's fair to the extent that you all feel you should have been informed, and we'll do a better job to Mr. Leamy's direction moving forward. I see this as a very positive thing, and so we'll do a better job. I'll do a better job with the information piece going forward. This is unusual circumstances. This has not been a normal circumstance. And I just have to say, and this is important for me to say, every county is not sharing CARES Act money with school systems. And I so applaud our county administrator and our county board for reaching out. We did not go to them. They came to us and said, how can we help? And so that was the process. I hear you all saying you wanted to be part of that process too. Please hear me say, to Mr. Leamy's point, we can CC. Unless we wanted to call a bunch of special meetings,
Absolutely.
I don't believe there was a practical way to move forward on some of these things. But again, I apologize for that, and now that the board has given that direction, we'll make sure to follow it.
Mr. Hill?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Hill?
So, do any of these dollars that are listed on our email, or the dollars that are being presented on Monday night, is there a negative impact on the budget that this board has approved for this year?
Any dollars that are awarded by the county would be additional monies that would have to be, in the end, what we have to do is do a supplemental appropriation, but they're already kind of given that heads up. They have to spend it by December. So, in the categories, we'll have to go back and amend the budget and go up on the budget for this revenue that is gonna be coming in from the county.
But based on the dollars that we have approved, does it negatively impact any dollars that we have approved?
No, it's gonna be to the positive.
The answer is no.
It'll be to the positive.
The answer is no. Okay.
Correct.
So they're not spending any dollars that we haven't approved. It's the budget, and that's what we gave them permission to do. Correct?
Yeah, let me add just one point here. Some of these expenditures happened over the summer to prepare for the start of school. We needed to do those, so the way we were approaching this is, if this money wasn't available, we would start cutting in other areas drastically, because we had to do this training. We had to reach out to families. I'd say it's a godsend. This is a good thing, that for expenditures that we had, the county's willing to do that and make that up, so we don't have to gut all these other areas of our budget. So in that case, we would have still, even if this money wasn't available, we would have still been spending budgeted money, but having to cut in other areas to make up for this and to do what we did. So some of the items that are on that list have not been purchased yet. We haven't spent all that 1.5 million. We wanted to get assurances that we could do that. How does that flow? But some of it we have, and I'll be putting in claims to the county for that money. So, but it's all to the positive. There's no negative impact to the budget. It's helping us recoup monies expended to deal with the crisis that we're dealing with.
Mr. Johnson?
I'm sorry, I'm not finished yet. So from an operational standpoint, which is what we've hired the superintendent to do, day-to-day operations of the school system, how does that differ from those decisions that are being made? Because it's not impacting the budget that we have approved. So I'm trying to understand how taking advantage of dollars that the county has offered for what I'm seeing are all things that are gonna be used by the public school system in Bedford County. I'm not seeing a need for us to approve every single thing. I, for one, don't want to approve when paper clips are ordered. I don't have time for that. That's the operations of the business or of the school system, and I thought that's what we had hired a superintendent for. So I'm not following the need for us to be aware of every single dollar that's being spent, as long as it doesn't negatively impact their overall budget that we as a board have approved.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Johnson up next.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify my previous point. It certainly wasn't necessarily a criticism. It was just a concern, because to kind of echo Mr. Hagler, I think this is a godsend considering the financial situation that we find ourselves in right now. I just wanted to make sure that if we started quibbling with these, that it wasn't going to potentially cost us money that we could absolutely use to cover these unexpected costs. That was all, yeah.
Dr. Mealy?
Me?
Yes.
Okay, I
You're
don't think,
next.
I don't think that anybody is saying, certainly I'm not saying that, as I said at the beginning, I agree with a lot of these things. But under the Code of Virginia, our job is to control and manage the money and to operate the school system and define operations by how it impacts any student. And what I'm saying is, we need to be aware of what money is being spent. You know, for example, and I don't know what the answer to this is, I don't want to get into a big discussion about it because we can, it's here, but curriculum development. You know, from 2016, 17 forward, there has always been money in the budget for personalized learning pilot. And that, as a principal, I think you probably remember, we were told that money was given extra to the school so they could create curriculum and resources to be shared with the division. I remember talking to Dr. Woodford about it, even Audrey Bowyer. So, now we need yet another 100,000. So you're talking $500,000 almost in the last 4 or 5 years for curriculum development and resources. Where are those things? I mean, as principal, I never saw them. And I just wonder if that's, why we're spending that money. So it's not that we disagree with it, but the Board of Supervisors started working with us on June 18th. So Dr. Shook certainly could have let us know June, July, and August, this is what we're planning, this is what we're thinking. And it is incumbent upon this board, even right down to his contract, to keep us fully informed. And if we decide we don't need to do that because it doesn't negatively impact our budget, then I think we are not, I think that we're not doing our job. That's what our job is. Again, I'm not arguing over necessarily what he bought or what he's planning to buy, but that we did not know about this.
Okay, well, he has been directed going forward to keep the board informed on what CARES Act money administration is looking at spending.
And I just want to make clear, so we're going to be able to come back and talk about it and decide, make adjustments to a list.
What I would start with is just ask questions. And if you don't get the questions answered to your satisfaction, we can certainly discuss it as a board. Dr. Hicks.
Let me, if I could.
Dr. Hicks.
I'm sorry.
I think we need to be very careful that we're not looking a gift horse in the mouth here. That this is a potential list that the county and the school board administration have come up with jointly. And if we're going to start nitpicking about this list, then we might not get any of it.
And Mr. Chairman, just
Yes.
one more thing. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Dr. Hicks. It's the process that we went through. The Board of Supervisors, I'm very grateful that the Board of Supervisors is giving us money. But I think if you talk to some of the Board of Supervisors, I'll be surprised, maybe I'm wrong, that they're gonna say, yeah, that was okay. I think they're gonna say, it should have come through the board. I mean, we'll see Monday night, I guess, but I just think we're missing the process, and the process is very important.
Dr. Hicks.
Okay, and in a normal budget situation, I would agree with that. But this isn't a normal budget situation. This is a big chunk of money that has to be spent within the next 3 months. And I don't think we have time to be doing the normal budget stuff that we usually do that takes 3 months to do. This money needs to be spent quickly.
Ms. Kirby.
Did you have something you wanted to say, Dr.
Well,
Shook?
I just wanted to, just for clarity, are you prepared to tell them everything that's on the list for Monday night? Because again,
I absolutely can.
can Dr. Deuce, it won't take long.
Yeah, and the reason I think that's important is because on the larger projects, one of the things that I am prepared, and I've talked to Mr. Hiss about, is that if there's not quick approval, really they can't happen because the lead times for ordering mechanical equipment and all of that, if it goes another several weeks, we won't be able to take advantage of it. So the specific items on this list are carpet replacement with vinyl tile at Forest Middle School, Forest Elementary School, Montvale, Goodview, and Thomas Jefferson. Those are the schools where we have carpet that needs replacing and that's easier to clean. Tile's gonna be easier to clean. Most of that's original carpet to those buildings, 20, 30 years old.
Excuse me, what schools were those again?
Dr. Deuce, can you put that in an email, please?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
can't.
Okay, I just thought since it was on the agenda, but we
It's
don't.
too much.
Well, and just very quickly on the HVAC systems, the system replacements at 4 schools that have lots of problems. Big Island, Forest Elementary, Huddleston, and Bonita, we think are all doable if that money is available. Cleaning ducts at all the other schools just to improve air quality, which is encouraged under the CARES Act, as well as some filters to increase our change out, in our system. So that's the list. And I'll certainly will.
Yes, please, just put an email, send it out to us. Ms.
Can
Kirby?
I ask for clarification on the filters they will be put in all schools, correct?
Yes, if we do system replacements at these others, of course, the appropriate ones for those buildings will be part of that system, and then going forward we'll have them. But yes, that would be at all schools, as well as the duct cleaning process.
Okay, now my questions aren't related to procedural process, mine are actually ones that are on the list. You stated earlier, now where were we getting the reimbursements for the meals?
That's a USDA federal reimbursement program.
Then why is $50,000 for a nutrition extra cost for spring meals on this CARES Act list?
Those would be for expenses that we were not reimbursed for. I know Mr. Hagler said that knows that there are some specific items that were in addition to the items reimbursed. You can't double dip, that's true.
Early on, if I can speak to that, some of these were estimates, we were looking at numbers. There's another bucket of CARES Act money that is competitive. And so I submitted a competitive application for that, very specific of what you can go after. We wouldn't have to go to the county and use this money for that. So, we've had expenses in different places. So we had to turn around that one very quickly. I worked with Dr. Woodford on that. So we've submitted that. I don't know if we're gonna get awarded any of that money. Under that CARES grant for the nutrition program, you actually had to run your financials and show that the nutrition program was operating at a loss during that period. Our program did not. So that one there will not seek any reimbursement for that. The only thing we're seeking reimbursement for nutrition at this point is the delivery of the meals and the transportation cost. Because the program and the summer feeding program and the amount we got from the federal government from that is compensated us for our expenditures, we really can't go after any money for that. We thought we could, we thought it'd be $50,000, but we actually came out ahead, and so there's no money on the table to do that. You can't double dip. You get money from the federal government from the summer feeding, and it compensated for all of your expenses, you can't then go and claim additional money. You had to show that you're operating at a loss. So some of these were done thinking that's how we might spend the money to get the list. But that, I won't claim any money on that one. So that's like $50,000 I'm not gonna, I can't really target. So that's what we're looking as we're maneuvering through here. From the first wave, as Dr. Shook put it, it's about 1.5 million the county said they allocated to this. Some of these are coming in under, some of them are coming over because we were saying this is what we'd like to do. Let's get going with it, and some of the expenses came a little bit higher. My goal is to stay under the 1.5 million of the money they allotted here. But as I said, we haven't spent it all yet, but we have till December to do that. So I thought I'd give some clarity on that one.
So if we got an updated list, then that line item would not be there, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then can you also clarify to me, and I understand CARES Act money is just to be spent as COVID-related items.
Correct.
How does digitizing student records for $50,000 come into COVID-related?
Currently, our student records are in paper folders at a school in a vault, locked and accessed when needed by staff. Almost a third of our students are not learning in those buildings, and their teachers are not there physically. And so, with the reconfiguration of grade levels, paper folders are hauled from one school to another to accommodate for that. Having an electronic system, which is a common practice among school districts, we've never gotten there yet, but would give access to the staff members who need it remotely, as well as in these reconfigured grade configurations. It's a matter of having access rather than having to drive to a school, go to a paper folder when the learning and staff the learners and staff members are not physically there.
So, but basically this would just be kind of an easy luxury. But how are we looking as far as having to buy additional cleaning supplies? I mean, I'm concerned of $50,000 being spent on student record software just for convenience, as opposed to something we're really gonna need later on down the road.
Absolutely, and I don't think we would have put something like that on there if we saw it as competing with both our existing budget and the supplemented budget that the CARES Act allows. So I think we're in pretty good shape with those products, and a plan to continue to purchase them down the road.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. First, I'd like to just say that the list that Dr. Shook presented to us, I think we all can agree that these items here are certainly of value and importance. We all can agree to that. I've sat here and I've listened for several minutes, and we each have asked some really good questions. But it's caused me to pause and ask myself, if we all have sat here as board members and we've had all of these questions, then do we actually have a protocol and a standard in place that allows us to really do due diligence when it comes to money being spent and allocated for our students and our teachers? I mean, we all have asked some excellent questions. And had we been given the opportunity to have had a discussion, then I don't think that we would have had all these questions today. I still feel that it is important, it is vital that we be given the opportunity to have discussions just as we are having now when CARES Act money is being given to us and spent. Dr. Shook stated earlier, and he apologized, and certainly there's great honor to that, and I appreciate that from him. He says that we haven't followed standard protocol. Then it makes me wonder, what is our standard protocol? What is the standard protocol? I know what the code tells us as board members that we are supposed to do. And I'll leave it at that. We definitely need to take some steps here and establish some standards.
Anyone else?
Can I realize another question I would ask. The $75,000 to buy a van to transport meals, is that correct, what that was used for?
It hasn't yet.
But who,
The estimate.
why would we need a van? I mean, we have the buses, we have cars in a fleet, why would we need 75,000? I mean, I understand the ease of it.
That may very well be the case. We are transporting meals now in a couple of instances. The largest one is to feed the students at Susie Gibson daily because those meals are prepared at Liberty Middle School. And a bus is bringing those meals at this point over and because it's available to do so at that time, and just kind of work that out. With the moving parts of pickup, meals going home and that sort of thing, the nutrition has never really had a dedicated vehicle to transport items, coolers of food, that sort of things out for any of these programs. And it is something we can work around. We've done it for years. There's just more of it going on now.
Well, I think if we do have to spend this by a certain time, that needs to be one of the last expenditures we need, because we need to make sure that we have enough money again to cover additional costs that we're going to have. Since we're talking about the potential of removing the $50,000 for the cost for the spring meals, could we get an updated list of what is actually going to be there and what isn't, with the list that you're going to give us? Will that list be updated and not have extra stuff on there like that 50,000 that was?
Some of these items, as I'm updating as the expenditures have been made, some of them are complete that I don't believe will have any more expenditures, such as summer school and also special education delivery and catching up during the summer for lost time in the spring. We know those costs, so we'd estimated those, so I can give an updated that this is the exact amount that I know. There are some that are still being looked into. On there also is the carts for nutrition to deliver meals in schools. Said some kids are not coming through the lines. Those have not been purchased yet, so I don't have an exact amount on that. Some of the other categories came in a little bit heavier, and so I can get an updated on that. I don't think there's any, where we don't think we're gonna have any more expenditures, I'll put on the list that I think this is complete. And on other ones, this can be removed, and on this one, we're still waiting for some more information to come through.
Yeah, just send us a clean list.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to know too, since we have some found money here, staff have been contacting me and I know some other board members fairly regularly about the issue of cleaning the schools and the custodians when they're absent, that there's no sub for a custodian. Can we use some of this money to hire temporary custodians so that when a custodian is absent, or even add to the school? I was at 4 schools on opening day and the custodians were running around crazy trying to do everything that they needed to do. And I think it would be very helpful, this is what this money's for, if we could get some custodians so that there wouldn't be an issue if a custodian had to be out because they were sick or needed a personal day, and they would have some extra help. I think that's really gonna be helping our staffs that are in the schools and our teachers. We keep, you know, I keep saying that we've got to keep our teachers especially as safe as possible. That doesn't mean they're any more or less important than the children, but if they get sick, then children won't be coming to school.
I think that's a great idea. We've been discussing ways of whether it's extra people if they're available or overtime funds or our own staff or, you know, some combination of those things. I think that's certainly something that would free up and give them more time and support.
What is, to kind of piggyback off what Dr. Mealy just said, what is the status of the mowing crews?
Well, that's very related to this issue because as we had discussed before, those, the whole purpose of that was to free up more time for our custodians to be available to clean in the school. We've been working with the county in looking carefully at what CARES Act funds can reimburse for. And I think as we're looking at that, it's very clear they can reimburse for what Dr. Mealy just talked about, augmenting cleaning staff, whether it's temp help, hiring overtime, those sorts of things. I'm not sure it's as clear cut with mowing. It may be that we have to find another way around the mowing issue to use CARES Act funds for that, and it might be simply, you know, paying our own staff beyond hours or paying additional staff beyond hours to do that, rather than contracting. So.
Well, to piggyback off of that then, each school has their own equipment anyway, am I correct?
That's right.
Then why couldn't we go through Manpower or a temporary agency like that to where it's contract labor for us? We're not entering into a contract and CARES Act money would apply to that. And to piggyback also too off of Dr. Mealy again, go through Manpower where it's temporary, CARES Act money, and see if we can get additional custodians in the schools.
We can certainly explore that. I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay, so you will explore that and get back to us and let us know if that's gonna be feasible?
Yeah, if there are temporary, qualified, trained, temporary folks who can do jobs that we need them to do, yes, we'll certainly look into that. Our substitute crews typically have been very thin, if we've had them at all, for custodians, maintenance and that sort of thing, but maybe there's another avenue, so.
All right, let's scrub the list, see what we got available in terms of funding, and we can go from there.
And I just have one more request. So Dr. Shook, will you get me where all this curriculum and resources have been developed? And I'd like to just see that. Somebody just get me a site or something I can go to. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, 4.03, communication regarding positive COVID-19 cases.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is another one. This came from Mrs. Hairston, and as you all know, I hope from the emails we've sent, we like every school district and college and other organizations, we struggle under this new normal to balance the safety needs that we have with folks feeling like they need to be informed, and also people's right to privacy over illnesses. And so the protocol that we've established for informing our public and you all at this point is a daily update on our website, which we started Tuesday. And I'm happy to say for 3 days in a row that it's been 0. But I don't say if, but when we get positive cases reported, we will be reporting daily, approximately 3 p.m., the last 24 hours update, the number of positive cases, which campus they're associated with, and also what the contact tracing reveals about whether or not it was determined to have been contacted or contracted rather within a school or outside of the school. So that is our plan, and I guess I'll turn it over to Mrs. Hairston or other board members now about, is there another process that you wish us to use separate from that to inform the board?
Thank you, Dr. Shook. When I asked that we put this on the agenda, I had asked Dr. Shook to send me numbers of cases. And at the time, he had informed me that we did not have a protocol in place with the board in communicating with us. So that, of course, prompted me to ask that we establish that. And I certainly think that what the division has put in place now, being able to go on the web page and see those daily updates is really valuable and very important. I would also ask that the board, just as Dr. Shook has done in the past, that he sends an email out to each board member letting us know of positive cases of COVID in our school. So I would ask that it include an email to board members. And he certainly has done that. I'd just like to see that continued. I also, with employees, I understand now, at the time, again, we didn't have this in place. Employees can go to this website and take a look at the daily updates. I'd like to ask Dr. Shook if we could, and you tell me if this is not something that's in keeping with the policy and as well as the state guidelines for COVID reporting as well as the federal. Can we notify the employees of a school? For example, can the administrator inform his or her staff of positive COVID cases, but within keeping with the HEPA guidelines, all federal guidelines? We certainly don't want to disclose names. We can't, and we don't want to do that. We want to be in keeping with that, but can the employees be informed by their administrator once it's been determined, it's definitive, that there's a COVID case in the building? Can we at least allow the administrator to inform their staff of that?
Well, let me say this, and then I'll defer to others who have more expertise. We certainly could permit that, and we have to have some mechanism by which they're informed. When we brainstormed about this for hours and hours and tried to balance that, we came up with this single point of contact, much like a lot of colleges have come up with dashboards, so that the message was consistent and we wouldn't be asking administrators to translate or perhaps have to answer follow-up questions that they can't answer and shouldn't answer. And so we did a lot of communicating with families and with employees about that was the way we were going to inform. The exception to that, which probably seems obvious here, is if you're an employee that through the contact tracing has to be talked to about a potential or actual exposure to someone that has tested positive, then you would get that direct information. And if you don't, that means you don't need to be contacted directly. But I mean, do you have anything else to say to that, Ms. Robertson? I mean, you were part of that long discussion, as were a number of folks here.
Yes. If there were to be, and you're not seeing it right now because it is a 0 on that report on the website, But if there were to be a positive case, the school would also be reported. So that was part of the communication. So there would be, as we've communicated, it would be if there was an individual and the school or schools if it was more than one case. So that would indicate to the community and the staff, if it was at the school, that also prevents an administrator from being in a position where we're providing communication and the risk of having unintentional Q&As where information is disclosed or communicated in a group setting that should not be. So by creating any group communication, we don't want to increase the risk of potential violation of confidentiality. But if that were to have read, and I'm very thankful that it hasn't, if it were to have said one case, it would have also said that school.
That school as well.
Yes,
And I think that is excellent. I am so pleased that, that we have that in place now. When I think about an administrator informing their staff, I certainly think if we gave the administrator the guidelines and we shared with them just what they can't share, like you're just simply going to indicate to your staff, and you let your staff know right up front, you know, I'm going to share this with you, but this is all that I'm going to tell you because that's in keeping with our county guidelines as well as those state guidelines as well. You just simply lay that out for them. Now, I say letting the administrator inform their staff of that, and here's my thinking behind that. For staff members knowing immediately what that would do for them. First of all, I think it would cause them to be even more proactive in carrying out these safeguards that you guys have put in place. I think it's important for them to know. And I also feel that it would give them some peace of mind as well in knowing. They're professional adults. They know what can and cannot be shared. And I think the building principal is just going to simply give that information. We have a positive case and leave it at that. That's all of it. There's nothing else to be shared. But I do feel that the employee should know and they should have that additional communication given to them. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move and make a motion that we certainly ask Dr. Shook to implement the step in allowing the employees of a school, of our schools, to be informed of any positive COVID cases within their building.
May I just speak to one caution? We've had multiple instances over the course of the last several months where the principal may receive a call about a positive or an affirmative finding of COVID. Once our school nursing team gets involved, those have been false reports. So we have had situations where individuals were being tested but had not tested positive, and it was communicated that that was a positive. So part of ensuring that our nurses are following up and collecting accurate information ensures that that accurate information gets to the dashboard, for a lack of a better term, the reporting. So I will say that information that comes in from community is not always accurate information. So an expectation for a principal to communicate at the moment they're hearing information to staff.
No.
Okay, so I just, when you said they could act quickly, that's why I wanted to clarify.
Absolutely, thank you, Ms. Robertson. That's not what I meant at all.
Okay.
That's what you understood.
And just so I understand, are you suggesting or recommending that the principal simply copy what's been posted on the website into an email and send it to their staff?
That certainly is one way in which they could communicate that. I just feel that once we have a confirmed case, the case that you would note on the website. You've gone through the process, you know it's confirmed. That's what I feel should be communicated.
So-
Once that has been established. Now, yes, the staff certainly could go to that website, but think about that. In their busyness of their day, when that could be communicated by the building principal immediately, be it whether it's via email or it's a called meeting, I just think we need to inform our employees as soon as we have confirmed it.
Can we do an email once we have a confirmed positive case that would be placed on the dashboard? Can the principal
Yes,
just do a
yes. That's why I
all
asked,
staff email?
that's why I asked the question. Because
Okay.
once the whole staff is informed, the community will know shortly thereafter, and so these things have to be coordinated.
Mhm.
We'll have,
To Ms. Harrison's point, then, that's not going to, that's not gonna require staff to go to the dashboard every day.
no, I agree, and that's the reason why I like the email is it doesn't put the principal in the awkward position of having to directly answer questions that might reveal a privacy violation or something, because they will have privy to information that staff do not have the right to know, and it can be an awkward position for the principal in that situation.
Yeah,
Yes.
you good with that?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
fine with that. I do have, just to continue if I may, Susan.
Well, I was
Okay,
gonna
sorry.
second her motion.
Hang on.
Yeah, okay.
Please, ma'am. Yes, go ahead,
Um,
Ms. Harrison.
I also wanted to ask a question. The videos that you all did, Dr. Shook and Mrs. Robertson, I thought it was excellent. I applaud both of you. It was very informative. I enjoyed listening to it, and I thought it certainly provided our community with lots of information. Help me, if you would, you used the term digital tracking.
Yes.
And so if you could help me understand, what does that look like? I know that's certainly part of the contact tracing method, is it not?
Yes, no, I chuckled because I had another question of what that meant. We are not having students wear any kind of trackers. That was what someone asked, so that's
You know,
why
I thought I want one if you have it.
No, what I meant by that is, one of the platforms that, we did purchase, and I think it was included as part of a request for reimbursement, because our grade 7 through 12, those in the blended learning model on campus are having the opportunity for some controlled movement outside of their pod. And when we say controlled, that's set with max capacities for spaces. So for instance, if a teacher advertises office hours, a teacher would be able to set the max number of students that her space would accommodate. That digital tracking is an e-hall pass system, so that when a student requests to leave their pod or their cohort, we know where that student has been. If they have requested to go see their school counselor, if they have requested an office hour, and those were accepted and approved, we have a daily record of a student's movement on those campuses.
That's great.
So,
Thank you.
sorry.
Yeah, that's great.
Good.
Let's see, I don't. Okay, that's all the questions I
All
have.
right, Dr. Maley,
No, I just didn't know what we needed to do with Mrs. Harrison's motion.
we don't need to
just
have
don't
a
to do
motion or a
anything.
vote or anything like that, it's gonna happen.
Okay.
Fine.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Again, I watched the videos and I try really hard to separate being a mom from being a board member. But anyone here who's a parent can tell you that's really hard to do. I don't understand and I don't agree with not having to have a negative, once you are diagnosed with COVID, to have a negative test before you can return. Can you explain why?
That's been the consistent advisement from our partnering health officials. Part of the reason that we've built our recommendations, if there is a positive finding, we are still advising that the student is out for the requirement period of quarantine, So the CDC guidelines say 10 days if there's a positive finding and symptom-free and symptom-free without any medication intervention for a period of 24 hours. So we're following those CDC guidelines. A couple of reasons that we're really looking at, first of all, we can't dictate what is a medical decision. If a student is symptomatic, even if there's not a positive finding, any student that's symptomatic, we can provide them advisement to consult with their physician, but we can't make a decision that is a physician's decision, and the decision to test is ultimately a physician's decision. So we can't limit the student's access on what may be a decision that's not within our scope. That has to be a physician's referral for an additional testing at this point.
So you can't say you have to have a negative test before you come back?
I don't think we are in the position where we can stipulate medical orders. Because we are a public education institution, we want to ensure access. We have incorporated all of the guidance from the CDC and the Department of Health on what's required for a return, as well as the Department of Education. All of those agencies that support our partnership with the Department of Health have indicated that there would be an accessibility issue to require a negative test before a student could, or any individual could return to campus after a positive finding. So what I will say, just as a system of monitoring those requirements, in documents that are maintained only by our nursing team and their backup, which is our nursing supervisor, Ms. Knox, we have a very controlled system of tracking staff and students date out and date eligible for return. And that's our way of ensuring that we are adhering to those guidelines, that an individual must be away from the work or school setting for the period of time as dictated by Department of Health. So any individual that's been advised to quarantine simply because of exposure, or any individual that's been advised to quarantine because of a positive finding, our nurses within the buildings can tell you the date out and the date that individual would be eligible to return if those criteria are met for return. So we don't worry about, I don't worry with that nurse team on top of it, that students would be coming back too soon outside of those medical guidelines, or staff would be coming back too soon outside of those guidelines.
Well, I still think that we should require a negative test to come back, if at all possible. And another question, and again, it's hard for me to separate. As far as notification, now and I understand that the school tracking and saying that there is someone in the school. Is there any way that can be narrowed? Because if it is a student on the other side of the building from my child, okay, it happened. But if there's a student in my child's classroom, I want to take precautions.
Yes, ma'am. I want to be careful because every situation is assessed as an individual situation, so I don't want to overgeneralize. It would be a strong likelihood that by the nature of these cohorts, which is part of the reason that our planning so focused on the cohorts and those controlled groupings, the nature of the cohort itself, I would expect in all likelihood, unless there were unusual circumstances with students being absent for an extended time, individuals that were present in that cohort would likely be contacted. So if there were a positive, that would be part of the contact tracing, if there were a positive case. That's the reason that we've worked so hard to control and limit that number, because we know those individuals are at greatest likelihood of exposure, even if the student or staff member couldn't say, well, gee, it was less than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. That's really the definition of close contact. But because, as educators, we know we may not see every interaction with a student may not recall every interaction, there would likely be, and also we're talking about minors reporting if it were a student. So the safe communication is likely that we're going to contact the teacher of that cohort. I can't say that will happen 100% of the time because again, these are individualized assessments with the contact tracing. But I think I would anticipate in most situations, the cohort, especially if it's a younger child that has been at recess or other unstructured times together where it's going to be even more challenging to perhaps monitor that physical distancing, that at least your pod or your cohort would likely be receiving notification. I hope that would bring some comfort to your question.
Well, can I ask one more? And I know, again, in the videos, I saw where there would be a comprehensive cleaning of the room. When would that be done? Would that be done during the day? And then if so, where are the kids gonna go while that room's being cleaned? Or will it be done after hours or within hours of the case being reported?
Do you want me to take that or do you want to?
Well, as soon as we would be informed of something like that, at the soonest opportunity, the room would be cleaned more thoroughly than it would typically be. And we bought some equipment and materials to do that. In the cases, as I understand it, typically that is done after school by the time we find out about the confirmation. But again, each situation may be different. We may find out about something earlier than that at some point, and we'd have to make arrangements to do that as soon as we could.
In speaking with our school nursing team, if they were to have a student who became suspiciously ill during the school day, they would likely encourage not a comprehensive, but an opportunity for the staff to be made aware to make sure that we've done a surface cleaning of that entire area and that the students have been provided that opportunity for surface cleaning. There are opportunities when students are outside of the classroom so that we could make sure that we're doing that in a way that's least disruptive or even least concerning to other students. The rooms are cleaned every day at the conclusion of the day. So students are coming into a room that has been sanitized from the prior day's use. So I think the concern that our nurses would have for communication would be students who become ill or begin to present the symptoms on site. But we would know that the night before, if the student were absent, that the space had been cleaned.
Sarah?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted a clarification, just to make sure that I understood this, that Dr. Shook will send board members an email
Yes.
letting, okay, I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, I think we'll just send it every day, just give you guys a daily update,
All right, thank you.
if that's acceptable.
That's fine.
Yes. Mr.
With the email that's going out, can you put a percentage of, so if it's one student and there's 200 people, which would be students, faculty, staff, what percentage of that school?
In the email to the board members.
Or you can put it on the website, I can go to the website, but either way, I just want the information. Mr. Hagler, you look puzzled.
What percentage?
I wanna know what percentage, so, yeah, so if there's 2 students, what percentage is that of the overall population of that campus?
I think that may be kind of tricky to calculate.
Wow, you got teachers, you got administrators, staff, and students.
Depends on what day. I mean, I'm just thinking about the calculation. You'd have to come up with a general population
Just do a swag.
as of right now and just leave it at that instead of trying to go back and do that every day.
That's fine.
Because right now, the person that is tasked with getting this information out to everybody is our head nurse, Patricia Knox, who we want giving attention to that rather than doing calculations. So I think we might be able to do something in general, but not like how many people were in that building that previous day when maybe the positive.
I'm looking for
That would be
overall
hard to do.
numbers, so I wanna know, is it 0.000002 or is it 25%? That's what I'm looking for.
That was I was just thinking through how would we go back and calculate what happened. That would be time spent trying to figure out how many people actually went through that building
on a
I'm
particular
looking
day.
for people who are assigned to that campus.
Anybody else? All right, 4.04, any other comments?
No.
Well,
Thank you, sir.
Before we move on from this, may I ask one question? I'm
Yes.
sorry. Now that I've asked for permission to speak, I forgot what I was gonna say. It's terrible getting old. Yeah, the one concern I've heard from the staff that has been moved from a homeschool to working with Connects, and I'm not sure who can answer this. They've been told that once Connects is done and they go back to school, that they will not be guaranteed to return to their home school. Is this true? Because why wouldn't they be able, because if that position is open, why couldn't they go back to their home school to the same position they had? Or, because I know someone from Forest, if they get pulled to Connects, isn't gonna wanna go back to work assigned to Storesville.
So generally, we would make that happen. I think what we were trying to be very careful with is not guaranteeing if let's say we pulled someone from Huddleston, and then at the next year, there weren't that many students at Huddleston that we didn't need that much staff. We would find a place for them, but it might not be at Huddleston. And I think we just, in our moves, we're trying to be very careful not to promise things that if later on we couldn't do, we weren't going back on our word. Generally, yes, we are going to try to get everybody back where they need to be or, want to be. I think we'll probably continue on with some of the virtual if parents like it. And so we might have teachers who want to stay there. So it was really more just about not promising something that we couldn't 100% say we absolutely can put you there because we might not need that much staff or.
So these employees, just to summarize, because I know tons of people watching now. So to summarize, that if they were moved to Connects, first priority would be to get them back into their home base, and then if that position is not available, then they would be moved somewhere else.
I don't want to speak for the HR director, but that was our.
We've shared a similar message. I've gotten a few questions along that line. And again, I would echo what Dr. Woodford said. I mean, we don't want to make a commitment that we have to kind of walk back on. So I think we would, and we always do, try to work with employees in such a way where we don't create hardships, even if there's not a scenario Dr. Woodford gave at that particular school. We would, we look up addresses and so forth, and we try to get people as close to where they live as possible and not create hardships.
Well, and it's not necessarily with where they live, but what school they were in before they were transferred to
Sure,
Connects.
so what I'm saying,
If that's the school they want to go back to.
I understand. If we couldn't go to Huddleston, now we would talk with the individual, but, try to accommodate them the best we could.
Anyone else? All right, Mr. Hagler, you're up. Payroll tax executive order.
Tax law. I remember those classes vaguely. Just a brief overview here. There was on August 8th, President Trump had an executive order talking about deferring your Social Security tax, and so to speak. And a lot of employers were like, what is this? How are we gonna do this? What are the rules under this? So we got rules on August 28th, and usually you would expect, 50, 60 pages on a ruling like this. It was like a 1 or 2 pager. It was not a lot of details there. So we did consult our attorneys, did a lot of looking, did a lot of talking with other surrounding districts about how to handle this. And it's our plan, I wanted to brief the board on this, our plan from a payroll standpoint, not to defer these taxes. I will say that we've had probably five or six calls on this in the HR department, our payroll department. All those employees that have called said, don't do this. So I'm just relating what I've heard from our employees that have known about this and are on top of this. I've listed some of the reasons that I think it's problematic. to go forward and defer this. I think if it's not permanent, definitely it would be a hardship on our employees as they get into January through April next year, that they paying in double. There's no plan or guidance on how we would collect that money if an employee were to leave in December and we didn't collect it. Now we're on the hook for that. I think if we were gonna do it, we just do it for everybody and not give employees a choice, because when I said in here, our payroll system really can't handle it, we could probably and do it for everybody, but if you give everybody the choice, I mean, it'd be a manual calculation across the board, one by one, which I think would be problematic. So it's my recommendation, and it's what I'll communicate out to employees tomorrow in an email saying, we do not plan on deferring your payroll taxes. We're gonna continue to withhold as we've always have done, and that should take care of it. So just wanted to inform the board on that, if you get calls on that, and we'll continue to answer those calls from employees that may have questions on this. And I just wanted to give the board an opportunity if they had any questions on this.
Any questions? All right.
I think that's great.
Pay me now or pay me later.
That's right.
Comments and concerns from school board members, Dr. Mealy?
Yes, first, just bouncing off of Mr. Hagler there, thank you for that, because I think that was a very wise decision on the part of the division not to do that to our employees. I visited Stewartsville, Goodview, Manita, and Huddleston on the first day of school, and I can tell you that at all those schools, the students just did beautifully. Honestly, you would never know they had been out of school 6 months. I was shocked. I really expected a lot of criers. We only had 2. There was no problem with wearing the mask. There was one little boy who came in who said, I'm not gonna wear a mask, and the nurse took him, and when he came out of the office, he had a mask on. But the extended car rider lines moved really, really smoothly. I just can't say enough that it was just great. As I walked around the schools, the kids just looked like they'd been there for 3 months already. So grateful to all of the administrators who did tell me, yeah, we've redone this like 20 times. But so appreciative of all of their work and the work of the employees, because I know, as we said in our letter, you've done this 5 times and you're gonna probably do it 5 more times. So just a really great opening. I also wanted to take a minute to recognize Dr. Calvert and her team for their efforts with providing the meaningful PD to our teachers regarding Canvas. At the last meeting, we extended the school year because teachers said that they weren't ready with Canvas. They were lacking a lot of knowledge with that. They were very nervous about it. And I did speak to many teachers about that. Number one, they said they were extremely grateful. Not everyone did. Some people said I was ready, but the majority by far said I was extremely grateful for the extended time to delay the start of school. And they told me they believed their extra time was crucial to their preparation, especially with respect to becoming more adept with the Canvas platform. I will say also to Dr. Calvert and her team that Mrs. Weiss and Mrs. Simmons, that many teachers said to me, and most of these were older teachers, had been here 14, 16, 20 years, said that the professional development they got was the best they had gotten ever at BCPS. So kudos to you, because I think that's a high compliment coming from veteran teachers who have sat through 1 million professional development sessions. So thank you so much for all of your work with that. When I went just before school started to some of the schools, they just felt very comfortable. So I think the board made the right decision in delaying, and your extra support of those teachers was just great. I also visited JF, and I want to extend my congratulations to Principal Wilson and the students and the staff for a remarkable job reconfiguring their learning space. I had actually been aware of that and had visited Principal Wilson several times as that was just coming into being, and they've just done a great job. I was so thrilled the students got to work with architects, and the whole redesigning of the space was just amazing. I think what they accomplished was an outstanding redesign of an underutilized space in their building. So I would encourage, if you haven't seen it, to go out there. Then I just had a couple of questions. Dr. Dewis, at the August 6th meeting, we had someone who spoke to us, Mr. Carson, I believe, about the custodians and not being able to participate in planning, and you were going to meet with them. Were you able to do that?
I met with Mr. Carson to give a more complete understanding of his concerns and what I think we're going to do in light of the fact that school has started is use that first Wednesday that we have without students, I think it's September the 30th, to gather that group when students are not on grounds to debrief and to determine feedback from them about what's working, what's not, what they need going forward. So yes, that's our plan.
Okay. I had another question too, and I don't know what I'm talking about here at all, but electrostatic sprayers, and for this super deep cleaning of schools, do we have any of those? Or am I even using the right term? Do we have any of those?
We have one in each building. And it's meant, what it does is disperses the cleaner, the disinfectant, in a very fine mist. And so it not only is, does what the, cleaning of the top of a surface can do, but it will get underneath surfaces and all around. And I think, if that's considered more complete or, just a different angle, at disinfecting. And so, yes, we do.
Okay, so there's one in each school. We're not sharing any machines from school to school or anything?
We had 3 at first. We've purchased more, and now we have them in each building.
Okay, great, thank you. I also just, and I'm going to keep doing this at each meeting, I just want to touch on some of the most recent data regarding COVID, according to the Virginia Department of Health and the Central Virginia Department of Health. In the last 2 weeks, Bedford County identified 114 new cases. The American Academy of Pediatrics has noted in the last 2 weeks that cases nationwide among children have risen 16%. And when we met last month, the positivity rate for Central Virginia was 8.2, and we currently stand at 7.5, so that's an improvement. And the reason I think we need to keep these figures in mind is because the CDC and the WHO say that really you shouldn't be above 5%. But we're doing so many things to help keep our students and our staff safe. I just think that it is something we need to keep our focus on, because we may need to make decisions based on this data later time. So I was really thrilled to see that we had gotten up to 7.9 at the highest during the last, between the last meeting and tonight, but we're currently standing at 7.5. And thanks to everyone in the division and the parents and the students for all they're doing to keep everybody safe. I really appreciated Dr. Shook's Labor Day message to say, keep safe so that we can come back to school. And I also want to compliment the staff on the videos. I think I've watched every one. I'm not sure. There's a lot of them out there, so sometimes I'm watching the same one again and say, I've seen this. But really a very, very nice job on that. That's all I have.
Council?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did receive an email from Mark Levy. He's the director of the Roanoke Valley Governor's School. Just wanted to give us an update. They began their hybrid schedule today. Everything is going very smoothly so far. For about the last few weeks that they've been open, they've consistently had about a 99% attendance rate. Not all students are required to be online at the same time. They do record the lessons, and as long as a student goes back later and completes a lesson, they are considered present. So even to accommodate students with connectivity issues, they are making those accommodations, and it seems to be working. So happy to hear that. It's amazing how it's like all at once kind of the quarantine, I don't want to say is over, but suddenly there are 1,000 things to do when there was nothing previously. A few weeks ago, I attended a special back to school prayer service at East Lake Community Church. Dr. Shook shared the invitation that Pastor Troy and his congregation sent. Would like to thank them. They prayed for all of our schools and as well as the school board. They said that they knew the school board had a lot of very big, important decisions to make, some potentially unpopular decisions to make, lots of conflicting guidelines from Richmond and whatnot, so it was very reaffirming to have the prayers and the support of the congregation there and elsewhere throughout the county. In the last few weeks, I visited Huddleston, Manita, and both Stanton Rivers, or as I like to call it now, Stanton River Elementary School, and I have been told never to use that term again. And it was amazing just seeing the faces, all the smiles, just how excited everyone was to be having kids returning to the building in the near future. All of the preparations, a lot of the teachers said, we were ready 2 weeks ago, but we'll take the extra time as well. And they were very, very eager and excited. Custodians have done a great job cleaning the schools, making the schools shine, and that it was going to be a safe environment for everyone to come back into. At Manita Elementary, Mickey Ellis in our community and his amazing team repainted a number of classrooms over the summer so that they would be very cheery. Our classrooms look a little different in the COVID era, but they wanted to make them really fun and inviting environments, and I think they are fantastic learning environments. So I want to thank Mickey and his team for doing all of that. And I've heard from many very positive comments since school started. One I believe I heard, staff was very happy, kids were happy, but maybe the parents were the happiest of all. So I'm happy that things seem to be going so smoothly. And then just finally, I just wanted to give a shout out to all of our paras in the county. I know that last month they've been a little discouraged from some things that they've heard, and just want to let them know that I do appreciate all the work that they do. I know they work so hard building good relationships, stable relationships with our kids, and some kids that really need stable relationships in their lives. They're kind of the unsung heroes in our school division, underpaid heroes in our school division, and I just want to, let them know, we love you, we support you, keep up the good work, and don't let anything get you down. Just keep doing what you're doing. Ditto to all the staff, but I think paras especially needed to hear that right now. So that's all, Mr. Chair.
Dr. Hicks?
I attended the Central Virginia Governor School Zoom meeting last week, and their hybrid program is going very smoothly. I also visited Huddleston Elementary and New London Academy yesterday, and based on what the principals told me and based on what I saw when walking around the building, everything went smoothly at both those schools.
Ms. Garb?
I just want to thank everybody who has pulled together to make this work. Unfortunately, I don't have the time in the mornings to visit the schools, but I am in one of the drop-off lines. And it amazes me, even though everyone is wearing a face covering and you can't see the faces, you can still see the smiles in everybody's eyes. And those kids are happy to be back. The staff is happy for them to be back. And the positive, upbeat energy that I know, especially at Liberty Middle School, because that's where I drop off, but the energy that is coming out from the extra help that is in the car rider line is phenomenal, and the kids are hearing it in the mornings. And I was worried about kids going in with face coverings and how they would perceive that, and everyone had their head held high. They were going to take on the world, and I hope everyone continues to do great things. That's all.
Sarah?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to echo what the other board members have said. Just a congratulations, kudos to the entire school staff members, every one of them. I just think we've had such a positive school reopening, and I know without a doubt that this could not have happened without the countless hours and time that everyone, teachers, parents, central office staff members, principals, everyone, custodians, paraprofessionals, you name it, they have put in the time, they've put in the work, and the dedication shows. And so I just want to say thank you. While I haven't had an opportunity to go visit the schools like some of the other board members, I did make some phone calls to some principals, just to check in and to say hi to them and let them know how very happy that I am for such a positive school opening and just giving them kudos for all of their hard work and asking that they extend that to the staff as well. So I do wanted them to know that. I will be visiting. I'll get out there and visit them, that's for sure. I also participated in a Zoom meeting with the Laurel School on August the 26th. And it was a wonderful Zoom meeting. I learned that I would be appointed as the chairman. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Were you not at that meeting?
I missed that one, I think. That was in fine writing, I believe. But no, I am looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. You know, special education is my background, so I feel right at home in meeting and talking with the staff there. So, but yes, I will be serving as the chairman, and of course, Dr. Shook would be the superintendent representative for Laurel School. They had a great opening, and I just look forward to hearing more and more wonderful things about the Laurel School. I also want to take just a few minutes, and I want to congratulate Crystal DeLone for serving as a member of the African American History Education for the state. I just applaud you for your work on that committee and certainly being chosen. And I look forward to hearing from the school division the steps that we are going to take in terms of implementing this and also allowing our staff to participate in the various learning modules. So I'm excited about that, and I look forward to hearing more about it. I want to also just thank Dr. Mealy for all of the work that she's done and emails that she has sent us during the superintendent search and all the time and your efforts with that process. So thank you so very much, Dr. Mealy. And also, I do have one question. I was just curious at this point where we are with our level 2 interventionist, if we have established any sort of guidelines for that particular position. I know where we are with level 1. So I'm just kind of wondering about level 2. Where are we with that in terms of setting a particular description up for the role and salaries? Are we still working on?
No, the job description for both levels is developed.
It has been developed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the salary scale?
Yes, they were both developed.
Okay. Could someone please forward that to me? I would appreciate, or tell me where to go
Yeah,
to locate it?
We're just looking around so we make sure we know who's doing it.
Okay, all right.
I don't mind at all doing it.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. That's all that I have.
Okay. Michelle?
Yep, not to sound like a broken record, but I'll add a few things here. Congratulations to this team sitting in front of us, to our many administrators and staff on day 1 times 4 and 1 more to go. It's been all positive news that I've seen and heard. So that's definitely always good to hear. One of the things that I saw this week was a 4th grader who is online, virtual learning, and he was quoted as, "I love this flexibility." Thought that was pretty cool coming from a 4th grader. So kudos to this team for getting all of that up and going. Also, thanks to the teachers who reached out and told me you were ready 3 weeks ago. I got you loud and clear. So I appreciate that feedback. Also, 2 things that I would like to see from staff, and you don't have to answer tonight, but I would like to see an update on buildings being available to outside sources. I know we had discussed that and never got an update on that. And then the second thing is I want a full update on Susie G. Gibson. I know when we all agreed to change the name, the committee that we worked with that night had made some promises of things that they were going to do. And so I would like updates on that. And in addition, I would also like to understand the impacts that name change has had on any of the programs that are at that location. So, that's all I have.
I'm last again, so actually I got the opportunity to pick up some ideas. But just to, and I did have this written down, Dr. Mealy, right here. Thank you for all you've done with the superintendent search firm. You've done all the heavy lifting on that, and I really appreciate that. So thank you very much. And then just shout out to everyone in the division who has displayed flexibility and that basically has that Semper Gumby attitude, always flexible. We're living in unprecedented times, and we're kind of making it up as we go along. And just keep on getting it, folks. You're doing a great job. 6.03, Dr. Mealy.
Just a moment or two. I have had quite a few emails. I've also had some inquiries from community leaders about whether or not we could possibly hold at least some meetings in a different location where more of the public could attend. Because I think we only have four people from the public. Anyway, just a few here. And I'm just hearing that people would like to make public comment, but they don't feel comfortable coming here because it's too cramped quarters. And even if we did it once a quarter someplace at either Susie B. Gibson, if we could do that. I know at one time there was access issues there, or back at Town Hall. I just like us to think about that and maybe make a decision the next meeting, if we could maybe even do, like I said, once a quarter.
I think we've done that in the past, and a lot of times it's driven by agenda content as well. So, but I think what we've seen here is a lot of folks are staying home and watching it online, and I think that that's kind of reflected by the fact that we've only got 4. I think we had 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 when we did it in council chambers. So I think a lot of it's going to be agenda driven, but to your point, yes, we can certainly do that. We've done it in the past, and we can do it going forward.
Okay.
So,
Going off of that, I think we should still consider, even if it's once a quarter, meeting in our facilities. One, it gives us ample opportunity to walk around and see the condition that it's in, and then for the principals to give us an update of what's going on in their schools. And then 2, it allows those community members who are in that area who wouldn't normally want to drive to Bedford to come to our meeting. So just a thought,
that's something we discussed, and then before the world hit the skids.
Right. So I just wanted to throw that back in there. Sure. I think that would be a great opportunity, instead of paying for a location, for us to go to one of our own facilities. So.
I think that's great too. Yep.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Kirby, second.
Second.
Dr. Mealy, discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.